Hey, Meat Man, good to see you, dude. I hope you're doing well, man. I always see your posts on IG, and someday I think if I ever travel out to Malaysia, I'm gonna get some rendang with you. Oh crap! Do we not have sound? That was. Hmm. Do we not have sound today, guys? Let's see. Can you guys hear me? I hope you guys can hear me. That would suck if not. I got my sound thing on. It shouldn't be. No, that's not muted. Oh, it's just exceptionally quiet. Okay. Hey guys. I'm just enjoying this day off and I was at my computer anyways, so I figured why the hell like not stream. Thank you, Martin Luther King Jr. I appreciate you for this fantastic day off. Let me see if I can get my chat up. Meat Man, thank you for saying hello, brother. If I'm ever in Malaysia, I hope someday you and I can have lunch together and we can get some amazing beef rendang. That may actually happen. That may actually happen someday. So here's hoping. Don DeMarco, thanks for being here. We're just hanging out and chatting, guys. I got so many books to read, and I've been reading a lot of them. We got child support studies. We got no fault divorce papers. We got books on romantic love. We got papers on the dowry in Italy. Where's my other paper? We got papers on migrants from India to Dubai and how they save all their money so they can send gold back home to get their daughters and sisters married. I mean, there's a ton of stuff here. And this is pretty much what I do when I'm not on stream. So that's what we're looking at today, guys. So it's going to be pretty relaxed. I might even read aloud. We also got this book here. I was reading some of this. So I'm just surrounded by books today, and that's how I prefer to spend my day off. Hey, Raymond, welcome in, man. Man, this is a good time probably to share your new channel, even though there's only 6 people in here, but who cares? Nobody's type. Let me see if I can bring that up. Nobody's type. Hey, Raymond, feel free to share your new channel in my Discord. Like, if you ever wanted to, you're always welcome to do that. But Raymond has a new channel he's working on, and it's kind of different subjects, but I saw him streaming games on there, which is pretty cool. So that's the website there, and then there's the main channel. So fun stuff. I was listening to your video, man, and I really liked it. You inspired me to make more videos, and it makes me want to do that. So shout out to you, man. Hope you're feeling better. I am, man. That first night, that night after the stream was terrible. And then the morning sucked after it too, and most of yesterday. But I'm doing a lot better now, so I'm grateful for that. Pretty much the last of the headache went away already this morning, so I just wanted to feel like I was doing something productive. You know, I'm usually working right now, so having a Monday off is kind of weird. So I guess I just by reflex felt like sitting in my desk and reading something. Already subbed to the new channel. Nice, man. Thanks for coming in, guys, man. I appreciate that. I was like, you know what? If I fire up in the middle of the day, will anybody show up? You know, because I figure everyone's used to the Saturday stream. It was just exceptionally quiet. Nah, I figured, you know, we'll save the music for Saturdays. I'll even treat you the rendang Shah, don't you worry. Yeah, you know, if I go out to Malaysia, there's you and then Jameson Pliskin. You know him from my Twitch. I would be hanging out with him, and then all of us can have lunch or something. I know you're in Kuala Lumpur also, so, you know, that'd be one hell of a flight, man. We'll make it happen. Mountain Man Tops. Hey, welcome in, man. You are too loud? Uh-oh. Damn it. Ah, the hell with the audio, man. I'm sorry. I'm at work doing some of the mundane tasks of the job at computer. We'll listen. Awesome, man. Papers. Now that I'm finally out of school, I'm free 24/7 now. Hit me up. When you come, I'll treat you some fire ass Malaysian dishes. Heck yeah, man. I've always wanted to try Malaysian food, and there's no Malaysian food where I'm at. I wanted to get Malaysian food when I did that interview in LA with Pearl, but by the time I was done with everything I needed to do, I was like, it's time to just get the hell out of here. I can't with this. I gotta drive back up. Um, he was joking, yeah. Hey, I was thinking about something before the stream, so maybe we could have fun sort of philosophizing about this. I was gonna make like a dedicated video on it, but who gives a damn? I can always make another video on it. And when Coach Greg Adams talks about his concept of meat, money, energy, attention, and time, and he says that all men pay, and I agree with him. I think he's right about both of those concepts. And a lot of the times we wonder, or at least I wonder, it's just like, why is um why is the manosphere space so, I guess, consumed with the kind of an individualism or a sort of rugged self-reliance, self-improvement, right? And then I was thinking about the concept of all men pay and men's rights, and this idea of men's rights advocacy and men coming together collectively to change things, ostensibly. And it's funny because all men pay still is true when you think about that. When you think about that sort of I don't know, scenario of all men coming together, all men have to expend money, energy, attention, and time in order to, let's say, get the laws changed. You know what I mean? So, like, if you were gonna come together collectively and get things changed, there would still be plenty of meat in that equation. And do a lot of men spend money, energy, attention, and time trying to do that and trying to get that done, and then maybe find like it's something that is not worth spending the meat on. You know what I mean? And then it's just like, well, if I have the meat to spend, is there an incentive to spend it on men's rights, or should I just go one of these other routes, which is like, um, pursuing options of women I have? Since I have the meat, I improve to the point. Why would they then spend it to help out other men below them? So I don't know. Maybe I'm not doing a good job of explaining it, but part of me's thinking about this concept of the amount of energy. Like if this was a physics problem, and there's an amount of activation energy to do this. You know what I mean? So it's like I feel like it brings us to this new problem of why should the guys at the top help out all men? Or is this better for all? Like, I guess what I'm looking at is incentives. Is there incentives for everybody to pay something for this worthy cause? I'd like to think so. I'd like to think so. You know what I mean? And when it comes to actually trying to change things, is there such a thing as men collectively working together or not in order to do that, to get a better deal for them? Or is it only something where things only change or laws only change when culture changes, which is something that's changed when everybody on an individual granular level starts to do things differently, so much so that the behaviors of people are obviously not matching whatever the stated culture is, and then people just have to accept it's different now, you know? And when I look back on it, when you think about changes and progressions in the type of marriage or types of laws that we had, maybe it was something like that preceded the actual law. And the one that I think about is at fault divorce to no fault divorce, you know. W A lot of stated one of the stated reasons for changing to no fault is that a lot of people were committing perjury and colluding together in order to get out of their marriages because both parties wanted it. The attorneys and the judges were in on it. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is people were acting in a way that didn't match, whatever the law said it's supposed to be based off how the law thinks the culture is. And then they're just like, well, people are doing this. We might as well just update it now because that's what the new norm is, culturally speaking. And then if you go back to that, and if you go even back further, and let's say the dowry system over to at fault or this love match system where divorce is something that is now introduced, from in I guess you could say ecclesiastical no divorce marriages. You know what I mean? Um, you could say that the culture had changed, because of romantic novels and things like that. By the way, Peter Wright put up a really good source recently that I bookmarked that talked about this change. I thought it was really good. I'll read it to you guys. I'll bring it up. That'll be part of our reading stream today. I have all these bookmarks that I saved from like um Andrew Tate and Nick Fuentes and Sneeko and all these guys hanging out in Miami because I was like, I don't know why. The stuff was interesting. I was going to think about doing a video on it. Oh, shit. No, that's the wrong one. Dang it. Where's my Peter Wright one? I know I saved. Oh, I probably saved it under info. I have so many different folders of saved bookmarks. Not even funny. Here we go. Thank you, Peter. So yeah, when you see major changes in the way marriage is conducted in a society, it is kind of preceded by a lot of these cultural changes. And so when it comes to, I guess, men coming together collectively and spending their meat, money, energy, attention, and time on a kind of collective effort, is it something that would work anyways, or is it more likely that men changing their behaviors on an individual level and spending their meat in a different way is what's more likely to get things changed in the future? I don't know. Maybe that's not even well put together. I'm just thinking out loud over here. Hey Geo Remy. Good to see you, Geo Remy, man. I like your comments on the videos. I appreciate you leaving comments on the streams after the fact and stuff, and you always have good comments, man. Yo, Shaw, I'm not on Discord, but it was Clary's second to last video about marrying a rich woman. All right, well, the hell with it. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, mail space and a super chat. I'm sorry, man. Is paying bad or good? By the way, Dr. B and I covered the individualistic man versus man mindset. Men selling out other men and inflated sexual competition. Did you post that yet, by the way? I know you said you were, you were planning to post some new videos or that. I'll have to check. I know you were going to share it in the Discord when you did, but I'll have to listen to that. I don't, when Coach says all men pay, I don't think he says it's a bad thing. I think he's just, for him, it's like a fact of life. And in fact, Coach gets irritated with men who don't want to pay. And he's just like, what the hell's wrong with you guys? Like, but for him, for Coach, it's like there's two kinds of paying. There's paying when an amount you don't know you're going to pay on the back end. And then there is paying on the front end in the kind of square deal, so what he doesn't like is men who don't want to pay anything. But what he says is that all men pay regardless, money, energy, attention, and time. So it's better to be aware of that and then deal with it in a way that makes sense to you instead of being caught with your, pants down when you're not expecting it and having to pay an amount you rather wouldn't. So I don't think he would say it's bad necessarily. It can be bad if you're thinking you're not going to pay and then you end up in a bad situation. Let me yeah. Oh yeah, Aaron Clary. Let's see. Aaron Clary, I'm pretty sure wrote an article on the dowry in 2015. We did review it once on a stream because somebody sent it to me. And it's like one of these old articles that is not like on a live website. It's on like one of those archive sites. I wish I had it saved. Someone sent it to me. I think I might have it saved somewhere, but I think it was from someone named Cappy or Captain something, and I know that was like one of his older names. Let's see. I am subscribed to Aaron, but I'll admit I don't watch his stuff that often. Yeah, Cappy. See, I think it was him. He wrote one a long time ago. Well, this is like 2015, so we're talking damn near 11 years ago. Was it this one, Geo Remy? Maybe it was this. Oh, that's 54 minutes ago. Maybe it's this one right here, huh? If you have a timestamp, man, just let me know, and we'll go over that. Let's see. I think he's correct, but it is a matter of return on investment. It is supposed to be a mutual synergistic exchange, but it rarely is. Yeah, I see that too. Both people should contribute something. And then, it's like a mutual investment. You're both investing into a pot, which would be the conjugal fund or estate. And it's supposed to, you're both supposed to benefit from investing into this venture together, which I would say is a form of paying. It might not be a one-sided transaction where it's going from here to there, but you guys are both putting in something. But that's like kind of like an investment, I think, can be considered paying. Thank you, Luke. Okay, I got the super chat. If you're particularly compelled to participate like that, maybe. I've thought about going back to school to be a men's counselor with the red pill angle. That would be interesting, man. I think about going to school a lot. That's why I spend so much time. We're going back to school. I hate to admit that I miss my college days, and part of me even regrets not going further, past a bachelor's, and but for it just wasn't practical for me at the time. But sometimes I think if I had a bunch of money, like if money was no issue or I had things settled in that way, sometimes I think I'd go back to school. Or even if I didn't go back to school, like I would spend a lot of my time reading anyways. I mean, it's my day off today, and that's what I think about doing. Other guys may be compelled to go the legal advocacy route. Others maybe have the screw it attitude. Powerful men are harming other men. Helen, Dr. B, and I discussed this yesterday. That's going to be a fun one to listen to, man. Whenever you post that, let me know. Or I'm subscribed to your channel. Hopefully I'll just see it. Men want to punish other men. That is what CC actually gets right. CC. Damn, not sure who that is. So does Dr. Matthew Raphael Johnson. That Clary video was interesting. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Gio Remy told me that someone asked him if they should marry a rich woman. And, it'd be interesting to hear his answer. Hey, Elena. Good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Shout out to the 9 people that are in here and hanging out. I haven't even started to bore you guys yet with the reading, but don't worry. We're going to get there. I promise. It's funny because it's like I'm at a desk 8 hours a day for work. So it's like, well, it's funny how streaming doesn't feel like work. Which thank God for that. If streaming felt like work, I mean, sometimes it can, but not really. Most of the time it's fun. So, yeah. We watched his video on the Somalis, Minnesota Somalis. It was great. I'm sure it was. That's one hell of a story over there. That's one hell of a story. Doing well though, thank you. I just came off of sickness, but I'm grateful that I'm back up now. CJ's view is like the view of life in general. Everyone has to work, pay to live, survive. It is a law of nature. He's just applying the principle where he's sitting too. So let me ask you guys this then. Start a poll. How about this? Do all women pay? Question mark. And I'll just leave it yes or no. If it's a fact of life for everybody, all men pay. Maybe the context there is all men pay for sex specifically. Maybe I should have put that in the poll. But do all women pay? I don't know why. I'm thinking of Base FCZ for some reason. Because he always has these kind of like philosophical videos where he sort of circumambulates around an idea and really gets it fleshed out. And I feel like my mind is a little bit maybe in that kind of type of thinking right now. We'll post it the next week or two. Okay, cool, man. Yeah, I'll keep an eye out for that, man. Should I marry a rich woman? Oh, damn. Is it there? Should Disney buy Playboy? Oh, God, my God. I'm so sorry. It's right in front of my face, dude. Thank you, man. My guess is he's probably going to lean on the no side. But, whatever. I mean, that's just my guess. I have no idea what he's going to say. He might even shock everybody and say this.
and there's nothing more important than marrying a wealthy woman.
So, we'll see. We don't watch him often, but he has good content there. I'll go get a timestamp and post it under my previous comment. Okay, yeah, that'll be good. Let me pull that up actually. And there's nothing more important than marrying a wealthy woman. Just a second, guys. Let me just find this. Well, yeah, whenever you post the comment, just let me know and I'll pull it up. We watched this video about that's right. Pay for what? Dating. Yeah, I probably should have specified that. Yeah, you can say that. Dating, relationships. He leans to yes. Oh, interesting. Damn. Well, you know what? I did say this was a reading stream. So let's just start out the reading stream real quick. And then you know what? As a special treat, we'll watch this. So we'll spend about 10 minutes on this. And this is just talking about. So this is from a book, looks like Stern's Individualism and Emotional Attachment, an Evolving Tension in American History, Journal of Social History. So Peter Wright felt compelled to write a few, or to clip a few, paragraphs from this source, and he found it pretty good. So let's go and see that. Despite all the good work done on new commitments to romantic love on both sides of the Atlantic. Yes, okay, thank you, blue sign. Can you go away? What is the point of showing me this blue sign if... Okay, thank you. Yes. Despite all the good work done on new commitments to romantic love on both sides of the Atlantic, a full explanation of the phenomenon has proved somewhat elusive. The background of courtly love literature can be evoked through its relevance, though its relevance is not fully clear. The new surge of romantic novels surely provided more direct guidance. Colin Campbell links romantic love to new consumer interests, particularly in clothing, and while the connections deserve attention, it is not clear which development, the emotion or the buying patterns, took precedence. I think many of us who have worked a bit on the rise of romantic love has assumed that the real trigger was the greater independence from parental control that opened up for growing numbers of young people, given new opportunities for separate money earnings. Initially, through developments like the spread of domestic manufacturing and the declining need to wait on parental inheritance. See, this is the dowry right here. This is the dowry in a different word. All of which were then furthered by the movement of many young adults to the cities as part of initial industrial urbanization. It may seem... I'm going to have to get rid of my my Master Chief here. He's in the way. Sorry, buddy. Sorry, pal. All of which... it may simply seem normal for young people, once they gained new latitude, to opt for romantic commitments with no further explanation required. Okay. This, in turn, brings us back to the special context of the late 18th to early 19th centuries. There is no basis that eagerly courting couples were necessarily explicitly aware of the growing risks of loneliness and nostalgia or the erosion of some traditional community contexts. But their increasing embrace of the idea of intense love, so striking both in the language of courtship and in growing aspirations for more companionate, emotionally satisfying marriages, clearly played against the new insecurities of an increasingly individualistic culture. Romantic love reflected greater individualism. The choices involved were increasingly made by individual men and women rather than an extended family. And a lot of this goes into the economy, right? In this other book here, Disappearance of the Dowry, Women, Families, and Social Change in Sao Paulo, Brazil, 1600 to 1900. One of the things that she talks about is the role capitalism plays, really the changing economy, because families went from being both producers and consumers, in this kind of agrarian type way of living, to, mostly consumers and maybe having a different type of work and labor, like labor market and all this kind of stuff. And it just changed the way people make money and live and establish households and all these kinds of things and different opportunities that they had. So it led to different ways of living with different considerations. And a lot of times when families started or a new household started, they would need the means of production provided to them to some extent, whether it was land or, equipment, in order to be a successful household. Where in the kind of society we live in, you hope just both people can go find jobs, and we live in these different kinds of economies where maybe it's easier to do that. And there's mass urbanization. Like, typically people would leave to a city and try to find work there. But now we got these super cities where, people find jobs that way and they're not as dependent on their family to establish a household. So, fun stuff there. Okay. Romantic love reflected greater individualism. The choices involved were increasingly made by individual men and women rather than an extended family, as Karen Listra has noted. Declarations of love themselves were highly individualistic, not only a matter of personal choice, but a way to define the self. And it's no surprise that things like Carl Jung and these kinds of psychology studies started to become big around these times. You got Freud and Carl Jung, and it was all about this idea of the self and individuation. So it's like humans breached overall into some new horizon of consciousness around this time. At least I think so. But the same love and its fervor also modified individualism, protecting against its potentially isolating effects. So in this new kind of economy and this new way of living, humans have a greater chance of feeling lonely than they did before. And this idea of romantic love sort of kind of helps come in to balance the equation. So maybe less family involvement means there's more room to feel lonely. And so men and women look to each other for more as far as emotional stabilization than maybe they did before, because that was taken care of from a family-centric thing. You know what I mean? The connection comes through clearly in the new genre of newspaper advertisements for partners in matrimony. Admittedly, not a uniquely American innovation. By mid-century, urban newspapers in the United States, and we looked at some of these old newspapers too, carried substantial columns of matrimonial ads. Hey, this was like the old dating app, except it was, newspaper ads and not as efficient. Some admittedly sought people with wealth or labor to offer, but the effort to find an emotional antidote to loneliness came through increasingly clear, with references to individuals tired of living alone and aware that the work ethic formula left many dangerously unfulfilled. So I find this interesting, the work ethic formula. And it's like, well, did humans not have a work ethic before? I think this is a new kind of work ethic that seems to mesh with the new type of economic system that is coming into view here from modernization and industrialization, and this kind of more individualistic find a job and, pay for yourself kind of deal here, irregardless of parental involvement, things like inheritance. So this is showing a kind of transition thing. But the effort to find an emotional antidote to loneliness came through increasingly clearly, with references to individuals tired of living alone and aware that the work ethic formula left many dangerously unfulfilled. A loving spouse was clearly the answer, two hearts to beat as one. So this is where you get the promise of romantic love to complete you, and you're looking for your other half, and you want to feel whole, and this person is your world and makes you feel whole and all that kind of stuff. So all these things are kind of happening around each other. We got two more, guys. We got two more. Clearly, just as many Americans reacted to growing individualism by an eagerness to enlist in a variety of new associations as a nation of joiners, they, at least as widely and often far more passionately, cultivated new family imagery and new aspirations for love. And when you think of American culture in particular, it is all about individualism. That's what we celebrate. Freedom, there's freedom from and there's freedom to. Probably started off as freedom from. It's definitely become freedom to. There's still some freedom from in there, I'd like to think. The implicit love versus loneliness formula clearly had its complications. It did not, at least as yet, widely generalize in the urban working class. whose marital formations, though no longer based on property exchange, had a different economic and community context. Even where applicable, it could fail. Disappointment in romantic love was, as noted, one of the factors that might be involved in hysterical paralysis. Hopes for love could be used to exploit, as the tide of breach of promise lawsuits could attest. We saw that in one of the newspaper articles that we discussed on a stream long ago, about women sort of trapping men with these breach of promise lawsuits, even over 100 years ago, because courtship was starting to change and some of these old laws that were still on the book would punish people for breaking a betrothal and causing damage to someone's reputation. So a lot of these guys, all men pay, would have to pay and be embarrassed because like it'd be this kind of public court affair that people could see. I know I haven't looked at the chat in a bit, guys, but I'm going to look. I'm just going to read the rest of these. Even where applicable, it could fail. Disappointment in romantic love was, as noted, one of the factors that might be involved in hysterical paralysis. Hopes for love could be used to exploit, as the tide of breach of promise lawsuits could attest. I would say, a lot of the pickup game kind of rests on this idea, the sort of hope for love and generating that in the other person. A rising divorce rate, which began first to be noticed in the United States by the 1870s, was another sign. So there was a rising divorce rate, okay, which was another sign that love might not be sustained as against other considerations, including a reassertion of individualism. And this is something we see, right? Like as the love match becomes more popular, it's harder for people to want to stay together, especially once that love honeymoon period is over. Hopes for love could be used to... Oh, my bad. I read that like 3 times. While at 0.4% of all marriages, even by 1900, that's a very low divorce rate. Hell, I mean, compared to now, the idea of a divorce crisis was easily exaggerated. It is worth noting that American rates by this point already overmatched comparable developments in Europe. Okay, so it's not that high of a divorce rate as far as we're concerned, but it's still higher than other places. So it was notable. Arguably, among other things, a symptom of individualism. Further, even when they held firm, marriages based on romantic love and every intention of emotional companionship might flounder against a husband's work commitments or the pressures of raising children, sometimes more children than the wives involved actually wanted. With all this, the romantic love ideal persisted. It became a virtually compulsory staple of popular fiction, a fundamental feature of the happy endings that editors were insisting upon by the later 19th century. So it sells. It sells pretty good, right? And it continued to inform real hopes and expectations as well. All right, last one. New sources of criticism emerged. The new breed of marriage experts, like Paul Popenoe, widely urged that romantic love constituted a poor basis for marriage selection. I mean, yeah, we know that. We know that now. Leading to needless conflict and high divorce rates later on. The emotion, in other words, could blind the individuals involved to the realities of marriage, marriage involved. These ideas reached a wide audience. College courses on marriage were amazingly popular from the 1920s into the 1950s. That's interesting. Could you imagine getting your hands on like a 1930s college course on marriage? Like if you got a hold of like the textbook materials or the syllabus, some of the learning materials for that. That'd be a fun stream, huh? And the cautions on love were part of the package and also the subject of endless articles. Sorry, guys. In women's magazines. Newspaper advice columnists like Ann Landers picked up the same message, urging, for example, that love should not blind young people to the dangers of interracial or interreligious marriage. There were many new ways to learn that love's intensity should be subordinated to other factors. Other factors. Okay, more pragmatic stuff. Men's magazines such as Esquire, a new genre, picked up a similar message by the 1930s, urging that the sentimental language of 19th century romance was demeaning, even emasculating. Articles poured scorn on the idea that a pair of passion-oozing souls could merge into a mystical unity, Masculinity required a tougher emotional approach. Real love could encourage harmony, but not at the expense of masculine independence. That's interesting. You know, it's like there's men's magazines back then that are just like, guys, don't fall for the gaslighting of romantic love. It doesn't seem like it's funny because we have all this new technology, but in a way, this is kind of like the precursor, you know, to a lot of stuff people do now on YouTube and social media. In some ways, I think it's fair to say that. I think it's fair to say. So yeah, okay, we did some reading there, as promised, even though there's more reading that needs to be done. There's more reading. Speaking of research, here's a what is this, a congressional report? Yeah, this is the Office of Child Support Enforcement preliminary report for fiscal year 2022, and it just has like a bunch of data on it. This right here is, so this gives us a list by states of how many kids that were born for these years needed to have paternity established or acknowledged for them. So that's another way of saying how many kids that were born out of wedlock did we need to establish a parent for? Did we need to get on paper who a dad is, right? So California, you can see right here, it's about 160,000, 159,000, 147, 153, 153 for these years. So you could say it's about like 155,000 is the average, you know. And then if you look up, let's see. Not that this is like super groundbreaking. This is just what I do on my spare time. California. How many babies born on average in California? Okay, so on average, California sees around 400,000 to 420,000 births annually, with recent figures showing about 400,000 in 2023 and slightly over 400,000 in 2022. Births have fallen from over 600,000 in the early 90s. Wow, so it was 600,000 then, now it's 400,000. So what's interesting here about this, so out of the 400,000 births for 2022, 150,000, you can say, needed to be established. And you know, this isn't perfect, I don't think, because these could be for kids that are over 1 or born outside of the fiscal year, but I don't know. I'd say they tend to get established pretty quickly. Acknowledgement typically happens in the hospital. This one right here can take longer because this is a judgment. But if you look at it, 150,000 to 400,000, and I don't know if it's fair to do, but that's about 40%. So that's about 40% of kids, you know, born out of wedlock. If you look at it, about 400,000 kids born a year, about 150,000 kids need to have paternity established. Then you can say that matches 40%, about 40% of kids getting born out of wedlock in California. So that's just a little fun thing there. I don't know if Gio Remy's still here. Maybe we could take a look at the Aaron Clary video. Should I marry a rich woman? So this is 20 minutes in. Let me end this poll too. Okay, so you guys are 50-50 on this. About 58% say do all women pay. I actually find that interesting because it's not as obvious, right? 58% of people do think all women pay in some way or form. So I think I'd lean towards that way myself also. Don DeMarco says he leans to yes. Okay, that's good to know. No dowry, no marriage. Yep. That's that goes back a long way. Nietzscheism got popular and still is in some factions of RP. Yeah, I'd say that's true, especially when you kind of got like the enjoy the decline folks. I think that would match. Carl Jung was greatly influenced by Nietzsche. That's also true. I've read some of his works, and he does quote him plenty of times. Carl Jung was greatly influenced by Nietzsche. He was. I don't think it's fair to say like he was mainly influenced by Nietzsche. He was influenced by a lot of like different sources. Like he quotes a lot of things. I mean, I don't know. Let's see what he's got. Let's see what he's got in here. Oh my God, look at this bibliography. Wow. My God. My God, look at all this. He read a lot of Latin and Greek, I'll tell you that. French and German. Man, this is a fun book right here. I can't believe I read this when I was like 24. I was 23. Probably forgot most of it. But yeah. So, he was inspired by a lot of people, but definitely Nietzsche. That's true. Luke says maybe the new work ethic is the hamster wheel of ever increasing efficiency. While a good idea, at what point does it become unproductive? Yeah, I think at the beginning of modernization, it's a really great deal because you can make a lot more money faster comparatively to how much things cost, But as time goes on and the system refines itself and refines itself and refines itself because that's what it's built on is, reducing expenditure, increasing revenue. Shout out to Cesar Quintana. He told me that. Then, eventually things start to get squeezed a lot and it gets tough. Especially if we were making so much money in the beginning that it changed how people live and what people's expectations for life is. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, I can easily get my own apartment and move out. Whatever the hell it happens to be. So in later stages, you can say, of modernization, some people might call that late stage capitalism. It certainly gets tougher for, people to enjoy that same type of standard of living. Romantic love puts enormous pressure on one's BF or GF. Very true. There are only trade-offs. It becomes what spectrum position does one want to inhabit? Coach Greg Adams always says that too. I forgot what he says. There's I can't remember. No negotiations, only trade-offs or something. I can't remember how he says it. I might have it wrong. So is Sigmund Freud. Yeah, he had an obsession with cigars, which I can't say I'm above. Romantic love equals tingles and GBD for women, not duty. There's a lot. That's a lot of kids. And yet the Tradcons are pushing marriage as a great deal for men. Oh, it's a typo. No worries. Yeah, I think it referred to as the law of diminishing returns, but I don't know for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that would make sense. By the way, let me just check this past live stream because I know Gio Remy said he was going to leave a timestamp in there. Wow, look at this. Oh my God, I'm watching myself. This is crazy. Maybe we could look at some of the comments in here. I had to hide one person from the channel because sometimes people will come in and leave snarky one-liners like, oh, you guys are just complaining. And it's just like, I want people to leave comments, but if they're going to leave stuff like that, then for me, it's just better to just hide them from the channel forever. And, they're never going to contribute anything meaningful. This person said, a single mother who decided to become a single mother, Lamau, how does that affect her right to alimony? Sometimes you make dumb points. I don't know who this guy is, but I tried to be charitable. I said the point is that breaking up your family for no fault shouldn't allow someone to get alimony. Alimony makes sense if there was an injury committed that gives cause for divorce, then it makes sense. Also, please be respectful. If not, I'll have to block you from the channel. I'd like you to participate, but ill thought out one-liners won't cut it here. And there are plenty of, the way, at least from what I've seen, moms will get divorced and then call themselves a single mother after being divorced. Like they're choosing single motherhood at that point. You know what I mean? And a lot of moms do choose single motherhood. Raymond had a good video on the single mothers by choice phenomenon that came out. I think it was yesterday. Maybe it was 2 days. It was yesterday. I woke up with a headache and I was watching it. It's pretty good. Oh, here's Gio Remy. Okay, he hasn't added it yet. He said, Shah, I think you may have heard of Aaron Clary. He just responded to a viewer who asked, should I marry a rich woman? Might be worth reaching out and make a video for a collab content. I think you two would provide a good... It would be actually fun talking to Aaron Clary. That'd be really cool. Only because I think it was him that made that article on the dowry. Yeah, don't be a Jason type commenter. Exactly. And, people come in with their needling and they say a bunch of jackass stuff. It's annoying, Not so erudite, the women you say to be a leftist in the panel with Gavin theorized that Pearl may as well be a total grifter, meaning she don't actually believe much of what she says in her video covering this debate, which may be a reason why Pearl's performance is as bad as what happened. Okay, we got Gio Fichot. There's Gio Fichot and Gio Remy. Maybe these guys are brothers right here. That's interesting. Her talking points are mostly correct, but Pearl still got cooked. As much as she says the same thing over and over, Pearl should have her message solid without reading from notes. I agree with that. It's important to have that internalized. Pearl misquoted data, made anecdotes that she claimed were evidence, and got roasted because Anna came with data, clear arguments, and sources. Pearl can't be considered to have her talking points to be anything since her performance is so bad she fails to really make any. So yeah, there's some fun stuff there. But okay, so this is this video. Oh, whoops, right here. Let's go and watch it. I mean, we might not watch the whole thing. I was hoping for the timestamp from Gio Remy just so we could be quicker about it, but it's okay if we don't get it. Let's see what Aaron Clary has to say. Okay, this is the intro. Would appear.
Me, sir. I'm very confused. You confuse me, sir. I'm very confused. Is this on? It's on. So confused. See, for the first time and coming up on the almost 12 years Assel Consulting has been in business, you're giving me good news. It's like all the questions I get here, I got a problem. And you come up to me with this. How dare
Let's see.
Dare you, sir? I don't know how to answer a good question like this. I don't know. We'll keep some things anonymous. Hey, Cappy, I need your help. I've been a fan of yours for a few years now. I'm of prime male living age. He's right at the
mid-30s, maybe
spot to where he's hitting his prime. No kids, as I work a cool, masculine, blue-collar job that girls like in a town in a leftist shithole with a bunch of particularly pretentious assholes. I make about $50,000 a year annually. Is this check?
$50,000 a year? Well, I guess it depends on the city.
Check. Now on to my girlfriend, who I met on a dating app. Where is this?
Okay,
can anyone hear me? Is there anyone? Am I even locked? YouTube fuck with the option. Girlfriend who I met on a dating app back in spring is a multi-millionaire.
Okay, interesting. Wonder if that's familial wealth or of her own doing.
Father was the founder.
Oh, familial.
Of a multi-billion-dollar company.
Okay.
Once he passed away at a certain year.
Okay, we got inheritance here.
My girlfriend inherited lots of money. Playa.
Okay.
She's also going to inherit even more money once her mom passes away as well. I've heard guys like Rollo and Rich Cooper, as well as other red pill creators, make the claim quite a few times that a rich man could save a broke woman's life, where the rich woman would never look a broke man's way.
You know what? Let's have some fun. We'll put another poll in here. Should this guy marry this woman? Let's just keep it. Woman. Let's just keep it yes or no.
Now, I do have a job, so I'm not sure if I count as totally broke. However, my girlfriend makes in a week what I do in a year. Uninteresting.
It sounds like maybe she has some kind of trust and it might pay her out. I mean, because if you're talking about $50,000 a week, maybe he's exaggerating. You know, maybe it's something less than that. But it sounds like a kind of payout from a trust or something like that. It's my guess. Or if she inherited dad's business and it's running itself or something.
Alone. She's 35 as well.
Okay, older.
Very pretty, but does have 3 kids from another man.
Oh, okay, 3 kids from another man. Okay, so I was, yeah, that part right there would kind of make me lean out of that. would make me lean out of that. If it was just them and they were able to have a couple kids, I would say do it. Especially because it's not really about me at that point. But if there's a mom like that, I don't even care about the money for me, but the kids would stand to have a better inheritance. So thinking down the line for them, it would make sense. But there's these 3 other kids here. I mean, yeah, never mind. Yeah.
Consider myself red pilled and unplugged from
But that's interesting. Let's see what Aaron Clary has to say, anyways. Not just about this, but maybe in general.
The Matrix. I read your books, The Unplugged Alpha, as well as the Rational Male series. When I met my girlfriend, she kept her money a secret, but did tell me that she had kids. Honestly, I wasn't looking for a relationship when I got into the dating apps, so I was just having fun. I don't mind sleeping with.
I will say it's a different case, though, because this isn't a single mom that needs a bailout. But, you know, the other question there is like, where is the dad in the situation? Is it the guy passed away or something? Or is it like they just decided, you know, is it like she knew she was going to get the inheritance, so she just decided to divorce the husband she had in order to not have to, like, even though inheritance is separate, maybe, you know, she didn't understand that, but it could be that she got all this money that she was just like, I'm getting the hell out of this marriage. Totally possible. You know what I mean? So is the dad still alive for those kids?
Women who happen to be mothers. Her and I really hit it off. She's attractive. She's great in bed. And after a few months, she asks, where do we stand?
Yeah, where is this going? Yeah, okay, we all heard that.
I never wanted to be with a single mom in a relationship being red pilled. However, knowing she doesn't need or want my money or resources, I figured it was an exception to the rule. It's true. That's why I'm very confused on this one. I also have quite enjoyed having fun with her kids. She pays for nearly everything, takes me on trips. I moved into the house.
Okay, yeah, so he's paid like 0 and everything is financed. If this could be something where he lives there and if he's actually like saving all his money, this is still putting him in the positive. You know, and then if he has a kid with her, yeah, there's these other 3 kids. That kid could be kind of still, depending on how rich she is, she could be set up for the future. And if he needs to exit out of that someday, it might be easier for him to exit out because he's, you know what I mean? He might be able to leave. But the thing is about this woman's money, you know, I don't know if that counts as income or not, technically. Maybe it does. I wonder how it'd be used in court. So if they actually got legally married, she'd probably be okay with doing a prenup. So if they were, I'd probably do a prenup too on this one, given the situation. If they don't have kids, he can live there, stack his money, and then when it ends, then, you know, all right, it's over now, and he can just dip. But okay, whatever. Let's keep going. This is a fun one. It is confusing. Yeah, right. What happened to the dude? Exactly. You know, like, I don't know, maybe she was cooking dinner for him and then he had a really bad stomach ache and he never got better. You know what I mean? Who knows what happened, right? I mean, I watch a lot of true crime. It all sounds like an inverted scenario, but you still have to ask or wonder why she's divorced. Yeah, I mean, there's a certain, the money's one thing, values and, you know what I mean? Like, consequences or results or past actions do matter. All that stuff matters, you know. She got the money from her dad. Now she deserves a man with more money than her broke husband. Yeah, there's definitely a story back there that either the guy knows and didn't say, or he hasn't found out yet. Very odd. Very odd. She got the money from her dad. Oh, I'm sorry, I read that one. Kids don't matter to most RP 2.0ers.
I won't say how much it's worth. What I'm asking you ultimately, is there an exception to the rule when it comes to being with rich women and dating single moms if they're the ones with the money?
At the end of the day, I think he needs to look at, if he leverages himself into this, how badly will this affect him down the line if it doesn't go well? You know, I think that's a big question. So let's see how Aaron Clary goes about this.
The marriage thing. It's kind of reversed If we just focus on the marriage, because there's other things going on as well. Okay, people are here now. That was weird. The no marriage is usually because you're going to take my shit and it's going to be a nightmare to get out.
You're gonna take on a liability.
Now, let's say you were to get married and you guys decide to get divorced. It's still going to be a pain to get out, but there's practically no financial risk for you. Now,
Okay. Yeah, so there's that. The guy did say that they seem to get on well. He seems to enjoy her company. Okay. Things do change after marriage. The honeymoon period could end. When it goes bad, if it goes bad like that, he can just leave and say, okay, it's done at this point. You know,
having said that, the very first thing, I don't know what the marriage laws or divorce laws are in your state. I would go talk to a lawyer first thing. Talk to a lawyer, say, okay, and find a good one.
Yeah, because the important thing the lawyer is going to tell him is whether or not her income is actually going to be used and calculated by the court. Because it could be that she gets this from a trust. I don't know if they wouldn't use that income, but it's possible they might not use that as income and then say this doesn't count as it. So it's like she's just the stay-at-home mom that doesn't work. So you still got to pay into this or whatever. But I don't know,
A good one, say, hey, here's my situation. Without a prenup or anything. What are the laws? Like, not that you're seeking to get half your shit, half her shit, right? You just want to make sure there's no way she could come after your shit. But depending on the state laws, you could get her shit.
Yeah, this is where the prenup would still come into effect. Hey, Nuclear, welcome in, man. Shout out to you. I was watching your stream the other day about how slut shaming or how it's not, there's no utility value. I thought it was pretty good, man. I was enjoying that stream. Had to run out real fast. Got back. Okay, yeah, we're having fun with this video, man.
You could get her to pay you alimony. And then the real risk of marriage is then the mere headache it would be from a legal procedure to go through with that. But then who knows, you might come out with money and prizes.
Yeah, listen, even if he doesn't get the alimony, if she's paying for everything and because he's still working, you know what I mean? It sounds like he's still going to work. She's getting all this money from this inheritance trust fund, which is probably what it is. It's probably in a trust. So she's taking care of her kids, So he's going to still work and probably save all of his money. So the way I look at it is he's making money by not paying any cost of living and he's saving all of his money. And if there's a prenup and I don't know, they keep their stuff separate, then maybe he can make out of there and it's still a come up for him. Most guys would be like, that's not masculine or whatever. But I mean, let's see what he says.
I like to think my team of men are not like average American women where it's like, oh, money. We're just like, yeah, I wouldn't be, no.
Yo, Nuke, I know you know Aaron Clary, man. I would love to have a conversation with him. I would love to reach out to him to talk about like the dowry and stuff like that. And the reason I say that is because I think he wrote an article on the dowry in 2015. And someone shared it with me, man, but I don't have it at the tip of my fingers. Dowry. Man, I don't think I'm going to find it. Yeah, I mean, if I Google it, it's so old. It's from 2015, and it's on one of those archived pages where like the actual website was hosted on doesn't exist anymore. But I'm pretty sure it was him that wrote it. So it would be fun to have the discussion with him because I got a feeling he's done background research on that before. But I don't know. One of these days, maybe.
But I don't know. It's a factor, I guess, to consider. So that's the marriage. So the money, in my opinion, takes the risk of marriage away, but you really would want to talk to a lawyer about that one.
I think the other big factor here is, does this guy want kids? And what it looks like if he has a child with this woman. It looked like a decent deal to me before it was mentioned she had 3 kids. Now, depending on how much money she really has, parking a kid there it might not be the worst scenario. If the kid stands to then inherit from this large, inheritance the mom has. I don't know. You know what I mean? So if the guy doesn't want kids, then it's completely different, Good afternoon, brother. The one last night. Yes, that was the one. What's her dowry for the man who wifes her up? Or is it her money is her money and what's his is hers? Yeah, that wouldn't be a good deal. He'll be in the green. He'll be in the green, it sounds like. Slut shaming alone doesn't work without men not wifing up 304s. Historically, women were shaming while men didn't wife up promiscuous women and it worked. Yeah, I think shaming works so long as there's like actual consequences that go alongside that. So if you shame someone and it's about something that can lead to real consequences in their life, and I don't mean in like 20 or 30 years, but I mean like legally speaking, or there can be some immediate consequences, then it, maybe it'll work. So anyways, Don DeMarco, did you find it? You can't post a link in here, unfortunately, but if anybody finds the article and puts it in the Discord, that's going to be super helpful.
Is there exception to single moms if they're the one? The single mom thing, that has nothing to do with money. That's like, are you going to raise another man's kids, which you're kind of not.
See, the other question that hasn't been answered is, where is the father of those 3 children? Is he alive? Is this a widow we're talking about? Did she get this money?
Because she
and then just dip out on the husband? Is the husband a felon? Is the husband in prison for life? You know what I mean? Is the husband working the corner, selling dope? That's going to matter a little bit.
has all the money in the world. So that kind of the main reason guys don't want to raise another man's kids is because, well, it's not your genetic material and it's costing you money. Well, it ain't costing you money. It's costing her money. That then reduces it down to the genetic argument. Like, does she want to have kids with you? I'll tell you this, man. I hate Franken families. If there's a step kid or a stepmom or what the fuck just happened? What happened? Why? Dude, there's something wrong with my computer.
Yeah, did she falsely accuse her ex-husband? That's true, man. You never know. You know what I mean? I've seen some heinous accusations. I have seen some heinous accusations. I have to say that 5 times because I don't want to say what those accusations were or are, but they were really bad. And that's a thing. It's in the Discord. Ooh, maybe you found it, man. Live stream chat. Ooh, I got to start looking at that. Yeah, dude, this is it right here. And oh, it was April of 2020. Okay. Someone sent me this. We talked about this on stream maybe like 5 months ago, but it's from Captain Capitalism. Is he the same person as Aaron Clary? I think this is the same guy, maybe. I know he goes by Cappy, but maybe that's why they call him Cappy, and this was before he went by Cappy. So, it was a pretty, it wasn't like the longest article, but it was pretty good, and it covered a lot of the stuff. It even mentioned Saint Nick, I think. So, oh no, it is Aaron Clary. Look, check out Aaron's other cool stuff. I don't know, Randall Bentwick. Books by Aaron. Okay, so maybe this is it. I don't think any of these links are gonna work because it's so old. Oh yeah, look, it is Aaron. Okay, yeah. All right, it's Aaron. It's Aaron. Hell yeah. All right. So yeah, Aaron Clary wrote this article. Aaron Clary wrote this article right here. So that's cool. He's looked at this stuff once before. So I think him and I can have a fun conversation about this. Don DeMarco, thanks for finding that, man. You're a legend for finding that, by the way. Big legend over there.
Pull that over there. Close. I don't like Franken families. If there's a step anything, brother, sister, dad, mom, here's your new family. Fuck.
It's funny too, because it's almost like the opposite conversation. This is like a guy that's lacking in other areas, but is maxed out on, he's maxed out on status. Or he's got I don't know, man, the golden mouthpiece, or I guess makes a lot of money, but whatever. It's just interesting because it's like this woman has this one maxed out, like if it's a video game and, the characters have different specialties and this guy's 100 in that, or, this person has this or that. She's maxed out on this one.
Man, I don't like it at all. You haven't been dating that long either. I'd say steady as she goes. And I know you like the kids and all that, but you're still kind of in the honeymoon period, as I'm kind of thinking it a little bit right now.
Yeah.
Uh, is there something wrong with, how's the broadcast? That's all I want to know. Is the broadcast bad, or is there any technical? People are, go back to your question. So
I like that he's kind of having to think about it, and there's a little bit of trouble with it. That makes this fun, and I can appreciate that. It's not like a flat out, no.
it's the fact she's a single mom.
Yeah, we got to ask, where's the dad? Like, I would be interested in the history of what happened there. Like how did that happen? It's going to reveal some things.
In the United States, it doesn't really get much better than this. I'll be honest, like a hot single mom that fucks you at least and is wealthy beyond your wildest imaginations. As far as single moms goes, this is about the best.
Yeah.
But did you ever want to have a family of your own?
Yeah, okay.
Uninterrupted, unimpugned? Is that the word?
Without having to do with, other people's stuff there.
Not diluted, not impurified with the children of another guy.
What this sounds like is the dad is probably fully cut out from the life of these other kids.
That you don't get a jail out of free card. You don't. Because you're the stepdad and you're to catch all the flag. You're not you're not the man who stepped away. You're not the stepdad. You're the man who stepped up or some fucking bullshit like that. No, you still got to do, but everybody would be like, oh yeah, but she's a multi-millionaire. So, yeah, like, no.
Yeah. And any kids you have with her would stand to inherit that, assuming she, doesn't get all destroyed. But there is already 3 kids, so it would be a 4th share, assuming that she wills that to the child. So there's a bit of a gamble. I know a guy who went through the divorce court machine and the domestic violence machine, even though he didn't do it and all this stuff, and got screwed over. He had 1 child with the woman, and it went pretty bad. But the thing about it was that, and he had to pay child support too and everything. So she has rich parents, but her parents are still alive, but she does live off of a trust or something. Basically, her parents are loaded, but they're still alive. And he had 1 kid with her, and they ended up getting divorced. It didn't work out. And there were all these things that sucked about it, but there was a part of me that did think the positive here is that the child is going to get a pretty decent inheritance, hopefully, from the grandparents and from the mom. So I don't know, it just depends on how much you value that. I don't know.
I understand. If you're worried about shame within your community or your friend, I don't think anyone's going to really shame you because you're going to be the guy who's got.
You know what? Nuclear. It's funny. This conversation's kind of making me think because like you did an episode on slut shaming and it kind of makes me think, does masculinity shaming really matter? So if one man calls another guy not a real man, from tradcons, it's one thing. From feminists, it's one thing. From other manosphere types, it's one thing. Can that be as like ineffective as slut shaming, or should it matter? Should you care? I don't know. That might be a fun topic.
No, it's not your money. But you'll be like, oh yeah, how's your wife's student loans treating you?
Hey. I like that Aaron Clary sees all sides. Like I think he really gets the,
and not everyone's a monolithic group, right? Most people are, but this is a different one. So there'd be a little bit of shame, especially if you want to have your own family and your own kids. But yeah, I don't.
I love that. What's good about this to me is it shows that there's these other considerations that help counterbalance the other stuff. And like they're very real and they do weigh some amount. A good buddy of mine was dating a multi-millionaire woman. Her husband committed deletion and left it to her. Oh, wow. He would have been set. Sorry, I don't have my bigger chat pulled up. He would have been set, but she was bat poo. Yeah, crazy. So I told him to walk. You know, that was probably the right decision, man. That's probably the right decision. Did they have children at all? Sounds like they didn't have kids. Orem says there's really not enough information, but if she's rich enough, then go for it.
Know that
That's really the thing here. Like, how much can you extricate yourself from this with very little or no damage, possibly even in the green? So, you know, if you can sit here and just stack your cash for a bit, it's almost like serving a prison sentence. You know what I mean? And it's like, let's say you managed to buy a little bit of Bitcoin, God, you know, and then you ended up doing a 10-year sentence. And you probably would have sold that money like when it doubled the first time. You know, you'd have been like, oh, hell yeah, I'm up $2,000 and then sold it. But since you were in prison for 10 years, like you couldn't do that. And now every, you know, Bitcoin went from, I don't know, let's say you bought it at 10 grand and now it's sitting at 100 grand or even less, you know, then you come out like a millionaire and it's all because you were just forced to stay in a box for 10 years. Except in this case, you know, at least he's getting some action and he gets to go outside. So
that the fact
dowry hunting is straight mercenary. Yeah, this guy is a he can be a proikateris. Let me see if I can find that article for us. This is supposed to be a reading stream. Damn it. Tweet material. My God. I got so many freaking so many articles at this point. Oh, here it is, right here. My God. Can't believe I found it this fast. The belief has been that the higher the value of the dowry, the better husband it will attract. Consequently, I mean, this is kind of what Aaron Clary is looking at with this question. This woman basically has a very large dowry, but she does come with other things, like the 3 kids. Now, Eleanor of Aquitaine was married to the French king, and they had 2 daughters. And then they ended up getting their marriage annulled, and she ended up marrying the English king, with having two kids from a prior marriage. But they didn't call her Eleanor of Aquitaine for no reason. It was because her dowry was the entire province of Aquitaine. So when she married the English king, effectively, Aquitaine became, you know, under English management and control, and all the incomes from there, regardless of having the other 2 kids. Consequently, it has often become an object of bargaining by potential bridegrooms, known here as proikoteris, or dowry hunters. So this is where dowry hunter comes from. This ain't new. So shout out to Gio Remy for talking about the dowry hunters. All right, let's move in.
She's not hoodwinking you, right? There's no way, because she's the one with the money. I think that lessens a lot of the criticism.
Risks.
2, because I'm totally broke compared to her and her wealth. I'm totally broke compared to her and her wealth. Does it make it okay if I married her? Or is that's still not smart to do? Because she's talked about it. You say she's okay if you don't get married.
You know, okay, you know, there's the cons. He's probably still gonna work and do his stuff. It's gonna be nice for a bit. Yeah, there's the 3 kids. Other men might shame him and be like, "You're not masculine," but I mean, does that really matter? Does it matter that much? You know what I mean? It really depends on how much money it is, and you know, we're assuming it's real and she's not embellishing it, and that he's seen the paperwork. He's certainly seen the money coming in. Like, you know, it's something to think about. You know, you can have a kid with someone else who doesn't have this, and then, you know, she loses her mind, and all of a sudden she's divorced, or you guys are divorced, or you're not together anymore, and now she's going out with some bad boy, and now there's another kid, and you got this 4-year-old kid over here, and you're trying to figure out custody, and then meanwhile she's got some other guy living in the house. This woman could potentially do that to him too, you know, kick him out after. They got one kid together. Now there's 4 kids. Then she gets with some other guy, and everything's all over the place. The more kids that come into the scenario, the more this divides anyways, if you're looking at the kids' inheritance. But, if it doesn't cost you that much, but still, the chaos, there can just be a lot of chaos too.
If you married her, talk to a lawyer, of course. I guess it would be the smart thing to do.
Wow, man. Shout out to Aaron Clary. I think I hear what Aaron Clary's saying. He's saying something like this.
And there's nothing more important than marrying a wealthy woman. As you get older, I'm going to teach you tricks on how to find a dumb lady that loves just tanning and comes from a family full of perhaps oil money.
Oh my
and
God.
then you can be a spoken for, well taken care of trophy husband.
Okay.
Financially, perhaps where I'm hesitant is I view marriage as like this. I view it as you honoring your word. What I really should do is play at the same level that most women are playing, which is it doesn't mean anything. I'm sorry. Let me. I should have thought this one out a little bit before. More practically, marriage is just like, do you want to go steady in today's world if you do not face the financial risk, right? That's how most girls approach it. Or he's just my boyfriend, but I get money and prizes and I get my day or whatever other fucking bullshit, right? If you took it at the exact same approach, well,
it's like Coach says, men are in love, women are in business. But this is like if men were in business, like women are in business.
This is just like we're going steady, or I gave her my letter jacket or some old shit like that. I don't think there's any shame in getting married in this particular case because the risk, assuming your lawyer says so, you face no legal risk. This is just like, yeah, this is my girlfriend, but we're just married. But at any point in time, we can get divorced because Americans do the divorce dance so much, right? Like married. In other words, I was still holding some or applying some value, some traditional value to marriage. Like marriage is a serious institution. I'm like, no, it's not. It really.
Yeah, in some ways, this could just be like another notch on this guy's, I don't know, dating history. He could be like, yeah, I was married to this extremely wealthy woman for a few years, and then we got divorced. The divorce was amiable. She did have a few kids. I still message them over the holidays sometimes. They were good kids. I don't know. You know what I mean? It was okay for me. I stacked a lot of money in that marriage, and then when we left, what's hers is hers, and what was mine was mine, and that's a lot of wishful thinking, also.
It isn't, not practically anyway, not in this world. You could marry too, yeah. I mean, if you wanted to. Would I still be considered a cuck being with her if I don't use my money or resources on her children whatsoever? No, you're not. If you don't raise her children, I don't think you're a cuck. No, because I haven't at all. Yeah. Just so I understand, this is a very rare. Yeah. I'm a little confused with it too. So I asked you a real simple question. Is she okay not getting married? And do you like her? That was it. That was all I want to know. Do you like her? And you said, yes, I like her a lot. And I know I don't know. People are going, this is a hard pitch to call, right?
I'll say this. Anytime you get married, what that means to me is that you're effectively setting up a household. And that's not just picking out the curtains and the blinds and, the way this thing looks. It's setting up the household from the financial core of it. You're setting up a new enterprise. You're finding a way to fund this. You're creating a new fund. So the question about marriage is like, what is required from him to set up this household with her? If she's shouldering 99 or pretty much dang near all of this, it's not the end of the world. I think it'd probably be wise to discuss with her, hey, if this doesn't work out, what does that look like to you? Are we okay with going our separate ways? Are you okay with funding? She probably has a paid off house, so he's not going to be paying, he'll live with her. I mean, these are factors to consider. if you're going to, engage in this enterprise with her.
No, I'm sure everyone's going to give me shit for being the umpire. If you want to get married to this gal, you can.
And you know what? Shout out to Aaron for
The
saying
real
something
question
different.
is, do you want to get committed to this girl? That's what you got to figure
How
out.
leveraged are you going to be?
I would not
into
worry
this?
about the kids, as long as you're not paying for them. If you are ready to get committed at this point in time, like, do you want to bang other women? That's another thing. Like, if you want to start banging other women, and that opportunity is somewhat present in your profession, that's the real question you got to ask. But if you really like her and you enjoy her company and you're having a good time, fine.
Yeah, that's the tough part, Elena. It's because he needs to say if he wants to have kids or not. I don't know if that's the deciding factor. I think that purposefully giving away your future possible kids with her by wifing up a woman who is pretty much guaranteed to get custody is selfish behavior on male part, but I could be wrong. The tough part is weighing it out to his other options on the table. If the other women he can possibly get with, a lot of these same risks are there and they also don't have money, then maybe this option might look more attractive to him. So it's like, you got a guy, he's making 50 grand a year. It looks like he works a normal job out where they are. Like, what are his prospects? What else can he choose? Like, at a certain point, the guy needs to be realistic with himself about who he is and where he's coming from. You know what I mean? And if he's mostly dating single moms anyways, then maybe that's another perspective to look at it too. So I don't know, but I see what you're saying. Yeah, I see your point. Yeah, I see yours too, though.
You can go ahead and commit to this girl. Now, what form that commitment takes form? What form that?
Yeah, it's all about the deal you're negotiating here.
Commitment takes. What form that commitment takes is dependent upon the lawyer and whether or not you care to get married or not. I am treating the marriage as just going steady with this girl. That's it. Because that's how they treat it. I'm not saying to be mercenary or opportunistic or be unethical with this woman.
He's saying don't be a proicoteris.
But if it falls apart, well,
can you extricate yourself in a way?
The multi-million-dollar person.
Yeah, divorcing a multi-million-dollar person that has, actual income is it's a hell of a lot easier than divorcing someone with no income. So
bad. Again, that's for your lawyer to answer and figure it out. But if you like the girl, fine. Be with her. And if you'd like to get married, I guess go ahead. See, that's just so weird being at the other end. You want to be more like, well, do I like the girl? And then you're so used to like, no, marriage is a risk. It's a trap. Like, well, wait. For her now, like, oh, that's weird. It's just weird thinking about in this position. What if someone created an entire department called DEI and it's just for rich white guys and they're going to hire you because you have a white penis? Oh my God, that would be weird. Like, why are you hiring me? Because you're a white guy? Well, that's odd. What do you want me to do? Talk about yourself and how everybody else sucks? Is that kind of unethical and wrong? No, it's the new cool hip thing, right? That'd be like DEI on the flip side. And you're going to make me the DEI officer? Yeah. How much are you going to pay me? $500,000 a year. You can do speeches. You can major in it. You have your degree in white guy stuff, don't you? Yeah, I do. I wouldn't have
it. Nuke says, yeah, I'm dating someone who makes more money. It def is weird. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's not... Like making more money or whatever, that could be seen as like hypergamy from the other side. You know what I mean? For me, it's just more about like mitigating risk, which I think is how Aaron's looking at it. He's looking at, okay, if the guy does this, what risks are he taking? And a lot of them seem to be mitigated. So I think you could say, I believe you when you say it's weird, maybe because it's so unusual. But I don't think that's a bad thing. You know what I mean? And frankly, I think it's a better deal and it makes sense, but after a certain threshold, it doesn't matter. That's true too. I can understand that. They usually say like when people make, there's a certain amount of money where once they make that, the more money that you make, uh, tends to have like less of an effect on, I guess, how happy you are or whatever it happens to be. I do well for myself and can barely feel the difference. No, it's great. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too, because you're still working and you do all this kind of stuff, you know. If you guys ever, I'll be honest, when I look at you two, I look at you two, and I'm just saying, from a guy who's been spending a lot of time looking at family law stuff and reading about family law history, I see if you guys actually matched and put that together, that would be one that made sense, in my opinion. In terms of what both people are contributing to that and forming a strong household foundation. So I think that's good. Even if other people were gonna try to, you know, talk BS about it, but ultimately their opinion, it just doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So having a strong house foundation is way better than what anybody's thinking. If they're throwing stones at somebody from a glass house and you got one made out of, you know, bricks. Under the current system, marriage is a huge risk for men. Will men still take the risk? Sure, they will, but they still get wrecked later and the kids will suffer. Yeah, you know, it's true. And I'm not saying you're black-pilled, but I tend to try not to be black-pilled about it. Like, even myself, like, because at a certain point, like, it's easier for guys who have already had kids and got divorced and they could say never again. But I think for guys that are younger and they think about it, when I worked at child support, I used to call it, oh, well, you know, walking through the fire, you know, you might, that's just going to be what it is. So I think at a certain point, if men can accept how bad it'll be, then they might still be willing to do that. But that's easy to say, because I do see some guys right now that are going through some horrible divorces. Literally people I know that sometimes call and ask me for, you know, a little bit of advice on maybe what they can do as far as the child support stuff goes. But some of their stories, I'm just like, damn, that's pretty bad. So I get that, you know, I totally get it. Broke people always see dating as a function of money. Yeah, I could see that. And then once you're, I think, you know, you might be saying that in terms of once you're past a certain point, you don't feel a difference, then you can actually start to focus on other things about it. Law of diminishing returns on happiness after a certain point of income. Yeah, that I've heard about that before. After a certain amount of money, nothing really changes. Yeah, yeah. Men marrying and having kids still contribute to the system and the current family divorce law. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I try to see it from, because I believe that people want families and people want kids. You know, so I'd hate to tell people never to do that, even if it sucks. But at the same time, I realize how much it does suck. You know what I mean? But I think at a certain point in people's lives, it gets really tough. And people do want that. You know what I mean? But yeah, I get it. It still contributes to it, where men walking away would maybe force a conversation and some change.
Waste my time, but it's weird.
This might be the end of the video.
I would.
What we're gonna, let's see what he says real quick.
Talk to the lawyer, figure that part out. Figure out yourself. Do you want to get married? Do you not want to get married? However, you are not ready to commit to this person. It's been, it's not even been a year, man. I would say I'm still in the find out stage. You know,
I think he needs to have some real conversations with her about, you know, it sounds like he's living with her. They'd get married. Not much is going to change there. But what that looks like and what possible divorce looks like. She's probably going to be like, the thing I care about most are my children. And I just want things for them to be good. So he can have some leverage there and be like, yeah, listen, I'm willing to walk away with whatever is just mine. And I don't want to come after what you have. I am willing to enjoy what you're able to provide while we're married. But that might make her more willing to say, yeah, okay, if this doesn't go well, we can extricate ourselves. The other big confounding factor is where is these kids' dad at? Who is that guy? And then if he wants kids or not, you know. So that's the other part. You know what I mean? Does he want to Does he want to park one there, so to speak? I've had a normal dating life since I was making 50K in my 20s. Forgot about that part. Less than a year. Never mind.
Unless
Yeah,
it's
but listen, it's not. They've been together for less than a year, but it's not crazy for him to be thinking about this as a possible scenario for him in the future. So I mean, he's been there for 6 months or whatever it is. It's not crazy for him to be asking Aaron this question now. So if they're together for another, a year and a half, a little bit more, then this is going to come up again because she's already asking him, the where is this going question. What are we? All that stuff. And she will want custody for all kids, but he will be on the hook for alimony and child support. I don't know about the alimony part because he can prenup that away. He can have some leverage to, because if that's treated as real income for her, it could be seen as alimony for her to pay him. That's the part where Aaron, I think, is saying talk to an attorney about. Child support, that's one thing. It might be worth it to pay the child support. If you're going to have zero custody, let's say it's in California, he's going to pay 25% of his net income, just as as a quick rule there. And with the kid there and raised in her house and possibly, a potential heir to whatever this woman's fortune is, that might be something I'm willing to do. You know what I mean? So it's a calculus for him. He makes $50,000 a year. And let's say he's saving all his money and gets to keep his money while he's married to this woman. If they actually split, then, he'll have a little bank of money to be able to pay this child support month by month. And maybe, be able to get a place with that money. So it's not like, oh, dang, I have to pay my monthly mortgage every month that I can't. So it all just, like anything, it's a bit of a gamble.
some spectacular, amazing relationship.
That's where and Elena, to your point about custody here, that's where it really depends. What happened to, where is the father? Does the father have 50-50 custody with these kids? Does he see the kids at all? Does she have some sad story about what a horrible person he was? Did she accuse the father of doing some untoward things towards her and the children? Because if that right there would make me not take the deal, especially that, because that's, all of a sudden you could be dealing with that. So that is something.
Relationship you've had. It's rare, but every once in a while you find someone and they got it. It's incredibly rare. I would say, yeah, I want to have at least a year under my belt. And, I really like you, but I want to go a full year here before we do anything. And then, but talk to your lawyer first and say, yeah, I'm up for sure. I'm up for the marriage. Let's do it. Yeah, let's do this. Sure. Then you could go like through a wedding and tell everybody what it's like. Yeah, she paid for the wedding and I had my day. Hey, it's just so weird. He's going to have his day.
Well, a woman's side paying for the wedding is actually not that. There's a lot of historical precedent for that. So, but the hell with it. I don't know. Sitting here and worrying about what people are going to say about this guy's masculinity. Are those people paying his bills or who are those people to him anyways? He is still a slave to the system. She uses his sperm for a kid and then he owes her. When he's no longer useful. That's true, but the problem is in terms of the calculus, all the other women in this guy's life can do the exact same thing. What are those women bringing to the table that this woman is? So if he wants kids, that's likely to happen to him with anybody he chooses. So that as a factor becomes less important if you're assuming it's going to happen with probably most of the women he sees. I grew up believing marriage was easy. As of late, I know it is the toughest life-altering decision you will ever make, for good or bad. Yeah. It's the way it should be. It is the way it should be, especially for monogamy. Yeah, weddings historically paid for weddings. Or you mean brides historically? Maybe that was a typo. Or you mean in the sense of weddings where like the guests come and there's wedding gifts and there's, all this kind of stuff and it pays for the wedding itself. I think that might have been what you meant there. Take it from me, you get more respect for dating women who make more money from you as long as you're not a bum yourself. I believe that. I believe that. Hey, you know, this thing here, this kind of reminds me real quick. I was actually just watching some Coach Greg Adams, and it's funny, like he was talking about something. Damn it, I think I lost it. Is when he was reacting to this guy.
Selling to me. So this then becomes where the women say, well, I don't like it that way. Okay, cool. Bye. All right.
Oh, he's still live streaming right now. There's a part where he's talking about this and he's saying, it's about, because this guy right here is going out with 3 women. And basically, you know, he's not exclusive. They have to be exclusive to him. And Coach is talking about if the guy's going to be exclusive, it's going to take all these things from her. And it's funny because in my mind, I was literally just thinking about the dowry. But he, you know, Coach is still streaming. I don't know if that's going to mess up our streaming, so let's just leave that alone for now. Real quick too, just to give y'all an itinerary. After we finish this video with Aaron, I got to take a leak. Then what we're going to do is we're going to read this article again that Aaron Clary wrote, just so we can see what Aaron wrote, because this kind of dovetails into his thought process now. So that'll be fun. And then what I plan to do is we're going to read a little bit from this book about Catherine of Braganza's marriage to Charles II and about her dowry. So just an itinerary for y'all. Historically, her side was paying for the weddings. Yes, true. Yeah.
All right.
I think he's basically answered it at this point, actually. Yeah, we'll leave it there. Let me just see the comments real quick and just see what is, let's see. Dude won the lottery. Okay, I think I know what that guy would suggest to do. If she suggests a prenup, make sure there is an infidelity clause. Honestly, man, if she suggests a prenup, good. Like, I don't think being suggested a prenup is a bad thing. That a prenup is supposed to protect both parties. Now, if she suggests a prenup and gives you her copy of it, be sure to read it and then maybe take it to your own lawyer and say, hey, does this truly protect both of us or just one person, right? So, just remember one thing. There's always a catch somewhere. It may not have happened yet, but wait for it. That's true, but this could be true of anything. First of all, where the F do you find these rich gals? This is some unicorn fairyland stuff. Please point me in the right direction. Pray that her being the breadwinner doesn't go to her head. Listen, when I see stuff like this, like, isn't this what the red pill stuff is supposed to do? So, okay, she's got a little bit on you. She's going to throw more shit tests your way. Like, isn't this where all the red pill jujitsu comes in? You pass the shit test then. You know what I mean? Do what you got to do. Is she terminally ill? Yes. Taking the high road is always the most difficult choice. Well, yeah. If she's not rich and she's not open to a prenup, just say no. He's probably a firefighter. $50K a year? There's a famous journalist lawyer who divorced his rich wife and got millions. He's big on X and I can't recall his name. Mike Cernovich? Yeah, Mike Cernovich. Thanks, that was driving me. Well, shout out to Mike Cernovich. They don't look like your thumbnail. Do you wake up in the same place 7 days a week or maintain separate places? I think he said he's living with her at the beginning. My only concern would be that since she has so many kids already, would she be willing to have any kids with him? Yeah, that was a big thing that we were talking about. Since she has the money, maybe she's willing to pay someone to be a surrogate. Honestly, I feel like if a woman had 3 kids, it's not a mystery to her to pop another one out. And I'm not saying this as a nutcase. I'm saying this as someone who worked at child support and saw women do this. Like, you know, some of these women will have kids like it's just a Tuesday morning. The issue with daring and or marrying a single mom is the resources involved. If a man uses his resources to raise the children, is where the problem is. In this case, resources are not an issue. So there will not be stress or stretch of resources causing conflict. Sounds pretty good. Okay. Shout out to Heiko Dachi. Enjoy the good life, buddy. You have nothing to lose and could be super happy with the wonderful woman. I'm with the woman who is richer and more successful than me. She is wonderful and I have nothing to worry about. You know what, man? I'm liking the positivity here. I get that could be rose-colored glasses, but you know what? Let's see what this big old paragraph here says. This will probably be the last one. This is the big thing if the woman supports you being the father figure. I have a friend who married a woman that had 5 kids. Wow, from 3 different men. Okay. Now her first husband was the love of her life, but died in a car crash 3 years after they married. If the other 2 passed away also, I'm gonna have to say this guy is in danger. As she admits, that she was a mess afterwards, which led to the 2 other men. She then met my friend who was sterile. Okay, you know what? I knew a guy like this too. He ended up marrying a mom that had 2 kids, and she made pretty decent money. She worked in the healthcare field, but he was sterile. So I think it worked for him in the sense that, I mean, she did make more money than him, but he wasn't going to be able to have kids anyway. So this was a scenario where he found some use in, you know. They had been together for a year and he was disciplining one of the kids from one of the deadbeat fathers who snapped at my friend that he was not her father. Yeah, see, this is the big consideration right here. And the woman laid into her kid to respect my friend, who had been the best man that ever been in her life. My friend proposed the next week. Okay, all right, all right, so anyways, yeah, that's, sorry, let me just get my stuff organized here again. I'm just going to look at chat real quick, and then we're just going to go over this article real quick. We might speed through it. And then we're gonna do some fireside reading here. Let me just catch up with the chat, then I'm gonna just take a leak here real quick. In comparison to other chicks, she certainly looks better from the calculus standpoint. I think he did mention that in the beginning, but if he has no authority in his family and has no custody, the same outcome as with other chicks. Yeah. Go date a rich guy, works like a charm. To women with money, the beta buck side is taken care of. You have to be hot and have options. Yep. And then, you know, that's an interesting thing to me, because then it's just like, well, okay, you know, especially if you're like a red pill pickup dude or whatever, a red pill guy, and you understand these things. It's like, use some of that to your advantage if you're seeking a marriage, and look for, you know, it's not like all women with money are physically unattractive. You know, how many of them are out there? I don't know. Do they need to make a lot of money? No, but it's better to make, you know, around the same as far as this divorce is going to go. I know kids are a confounding factor, but, you know, I don't know, use some of that pickup charm on some of these, you know, ladies up with some means. I think superficially she looks more appealing. But the outcome more or less is going to be the same. He won't be completely ruined, but he has no authority and likely no legacy of his kids. That's true, but it's just like, this is presupposing that he has other options to obtain those things. So that's where it's like, I don't know, does that cancel itself out? Real quick, I'll be back, guys. Just give me about, I don't know, 2 minutes here. Where's my going away screen?
Yeah. She coming with nothing. Yeah. Deadbeat vibes. Let's go. Deadbeat woman, no bag, no dowry. Think she the table, but she just a story. Bringing no bread, but she want the glory. Deadbeat woman, drama queen, no quarry. Roll up, no fun, she just got a vibe. Claim she the queen, but her wallet's bone dry. Want the whole plate, but can't carry a load. Talking about love, but she breaking the code. I'm stacking my paper, she stacking the stress. Bringing no cash, but she want the finesse. Think she the boss, but she causing a mess. Weight on my back, is she more than my ex? Deadbeat woman, no bag, no dowry. Think she the table, but she just a story. Bringing no bread, but she want the glory. Deadbeat woman, drama queen, no glory. Yo. 808 quick, yeah, my bankroll thick. She show up empty, trying to pull a quick trick. Say she hold it down, but it's all cap. Emotional baggage, yeah, she got a full pack. I'm dodging like chaos, she stirring the pot. Claiming the workload, but she giving me squat. No coins in the purse, but she talking so loud. Deadbeat vibe, she ain't drawing no crowd. She pull up, no hustle, just running the lips. Expecting the throne, but she sick in my shit. Got dreams at the top, but no grind in the soul. Leaving me broke while she...
I'm back, folks. That was a fantastic 55 seconds or whatever that was. Whew. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, that was nice. That was fantastic. All right. Let me see if I got anything else here just before we read this article so I don't inundate. We're going to be inundated with text here for a little bit. We're going to be inundated with text. You guys hear about these looks maxers lately? Also, I just realized I'm streaming on Twitter and forgot to change the title, but yeah, it's not a big deal. Not many people watch me on Twitter. What do you guys think about this new looks maxing thing? Oh, damn it. Oh, come on, man. New. I saw this this tweet on Twitter. There's nothing more effeminate than masquerading as masculine while dolling yourself up in a literal and figurative makeup. Just embarrassing. And I was thinking about how look maxing and makeup are, you know, very similar. It's interesting, you know, because if you look at it from a very bird's eye view, it's like men are adopting this like similar strategy, maybe that women did with like makeup. It's just odd, you know. Okay, enough of that. Let me just catch up with chat real quick. Okay. Women with money are surrounded by dorks. That's why she chose you. What's the need for men to take that asymmetrical risk? Women benefits from marriage more than men do. Do you mean like why would they? The only thing I can think of is wanting kids. Oh, let me end this poll real quick. Just end that. Okay. I think most of y'all said no, like 60% said no, but there were still some that said yes. You mean clavicular is bone smashing? Yeah. Like, you know, that seems like a kind of makeup right there. And then I think, like, there's just all these, it's almost like a plastic surgery kind of deal. Maybe it's more like plastic surgery. Maybe the advocacy should be to not getting married, but promoting unmarried LTR. Would that solve the issue? I think that's what some of the folks are starting to say. No state marriage, but that's where the ecclesiastical marriage comes in, I think. Looks max all the time. I brush my hair and stuff. Hey, Tacticus, welcome in, man. All right, guys, let's just read this just to honor Aaron Clary. So it looks like this was from 2020. Oh, this is from his actual site. Okay, I thought this was an archive post. Focus, if you will, solely on the financial and economic. Forget principles, morality, ethics, and philosophy, and merely focus on transactional economics. Labor, money, time, cash, a pure accounting of labor committed versus labor received. And you will realize is that nearly every man today has a right to demand a dowry. Hey.
Oh, dowry. It's my right.
If you don't know or never knew what a dowry was, yeah, and this is because of the feminist gaslighting. This is the artificial, purposely constructed collective amnesia that has been thrown on men, according to my tinfoil hat. It was payment the father usually made to his would-be son-in-law to take his daughter off his hands and care for her into the future. There are a lot of definitions that say it's the amount that the woman brings to her husband. The truest definition, in my opinion, is that it's the woman's pre-mortem inheritance. And it's technically her property, but the man has usufruct over it. But it's usufruct within limits, so you can't just go sell the farm, you know, or go bet it at the gambling hall. But the man does have management over it. And then typically, you know, when he passes away, then the widow has full control over it. And you know, that's where grandma comes in to help out the grandkids with the dowry by divvying that kind of stuff up. Anyways, if you don't know, oh yeah, here we go. This was based on the premise that women did not work. would likely bear children and would stay home to rear said children, and would in a purely accounting sense be a financial liability to the family, earning no income. And so the would-be husband would be entitled, if not required, to some kind of financial recompense to take the financial liability of a woman off the hands of her father. And see, so this is going to contrast with bride price, which was there before dowry. And bride price was the way it was because women's labor did contribute income back then, because they were the primary contributors to agriculture. Back when we had basically easier tools to use before the heavy plow. Okay. So yeah, and this also, involves a discussion of monogamy versus polygyny. So especially when they want her married to a man and all of his resources to go to this one woman and those kids. This is where that comes in. Fast forward 300 years later, and I ask a very simple question: how is it any different today? Well, if you're doing what the tradcons want you to do, then yeah, I mean, it's not. Hey, Mr. Pitt, man, shout out to you, brother. I was hoping I'd see you. Man, I really need some dark mode on this. If there was a time young women were not a financial liability, but an asset, it was the boomers and Gen Xers. These women were workers, they were employed, and they did take care of themselves. But today's generation of young women, who are also at the age of marriage, do not present young male suitors a similar financial proposition or condition. Matter of fact, most young women today are horrifically bad financial liabilities, and any young woman who commits to them risks taking his own finances. Not to mention, at least there was like at-fault divorce in these times to help mitigate some of the liability factor. This isn't primarily due to young women not working. They most certainly do, and at labor force participation rates higher than any generation of women past. But the financial liability nature of most young women today is due to student loans and the education scam that destroys their finances. This is going to be your negative dowry.
I have no dowry. If anything, I have a negative dowry.
But the financial liability, young women too cowardly to commit to a real degree like STEM are lured too easily to go $120,000 in debt for worthless liberal arts degrees that offer them no employability. Worse, the indoctrination they receive in college weaponizes them against men instead of making them partners and lovers in life to help one another. And with the repeated indoctrination that women should never rely on a man, the end result is not only often a girl who is a financial risk, but is a girl no man wants. Indebted, talentless, unemployable, and ideologically programmed to be against men. This is probably, the most egregious of all that. Marriage, family, and love, to be programmed against that. Even women trained in STEM who are eminently employable are oftentimes indoctrinated to be antagonistic towards men, increasing the risk of divorce, adding a huge legal risk to a financial one as well. Real quick, Tacticus has a question. Was bride price concurrent with dowry at any time in history, or were they interchangeable, or one preceded the other? So that's a good question, man. And what you see is as things start to transition, you see both bride price and dowry occurring within the same marriages. But what happens is the dowry amount starts to really like dwarf the bride price amount. Let me see if I don't know if I can pull up a source on that instantly, but there's a good book. Oh God, where's it called? I always forget the name of it. It's about marriage transactions in ancient Palestine, and it pretty much looks at all the marriage, like it looks at dang near as many marriage contracts as we have of the ancient, Israelites from when they moved from a bride price into a dowry paying society. And this concurred with them basically moving from, this kind of less urbanized style of living into living and becoming more urbanized. So they go into like, I think Elephantine and all these kinds of places. Man, I cannot. Marriage at the time of the council, economics, history and function. I got so many, I really got to reorganize all this stuff. Disappearance, dowry for daughter. Sorry, I don't have it offhand, but it's by T.M. Lemos. See if I could just find it here. Marriage transactions in ancient Palestine. I literally have this. I just can't. I just can't bring it up right. Marriage, gifts, and social change in ancient Palestine. Cambridge University Press. Dang, my internet's going slow. It's this book right here. Right here. By T.M. Lemos. And this is a good book because it's looking at actual marriage contracts that we have from back then. Let me see if I can find it. Marriage. Oh, here it is. Whew. My God. Let me see if I could just pull up an example of a marriage contract. I shouldn't be doing this on dowry. Okay, yeah, we're seeing them. Ooh wee. I'm trying to find you one that has both the mohar and the dowry. I think this might be one of them. Okay, the 4 remaining marriage documents from Elephantine, as stated before, are all fragmentary. The first of these contains the beginning of a marriage document. Unfortunately, the names of the parties are not... I wish I can get this out of the way. Oh, there we go. Are not preserved, nor is much of the information regarding the dowry. Oh, well, dang it. We needed that. Though it is clear that there was one. This is the case because one finds a fragmentary list of dowry items, though the signature phrase she brought to me is missing. Okay, let me see if I can actually find another one. There's a couple of them in here. Oh, here we go. Okay. The second of the fragmentary documents, unlike the first, does not contain any of the beginning section. One finds instead a list of the dowry. But you can see in the first one, there is a dowry and there is the mohar listed right here. This is your bride price, okay, in silver. Shout out to Silver Pill. That's going to be Michael saying. The second one here, the dowry was worth 38 shekels. Let me see if this one lists the mohar also. Sorry. Oops. I'm trying to get it off screen so I don't have to like inundate you guys with a bunch of text. I know it doesn't look pretty. Dang it. I'm gonna have to find it. I don't want to have to do it midstream. But basically, if you look at marriage contracts, there is a kind of transitory time. So the bride price becomes like this almost symbolic thing. So it'll be like 5 shekels, you know, and then the wife is coming in with a dowry of like 60 shekels. You know what I mean? So it like dwarfs it. And you can also see in like old Sumerian, literally in Hammurabi's code, it mentions both dowry and bride price. So just to answer your question, man, I just wish I could find a better example. I mean, those ones weren't terrible examples. I just want to find. Here we go. Well, here we go. Let me just read this. One of the 5 documents from Elephantine that make clear reference to at least one type of marital prestation, then all 5 include a discussion, and when fully preserved, a very detailed discussion of the contents of a dowry. 2 also include the payment of a mohar. Okay, that's your bride price, Old Testament. And a third may make reference to said prestation as well. Though it is unclear, thus there exist 2 texts in which both the dowry and mohar were paid, but in both cases the amount of the mohar is insignificant. In the case of one text, 10 shekels, and in the other a mere 5, and is far outstripped by the value of the dowry. And in one, if not both of these texts, the mohar, which is in the pre-exilic period always designated bride wealth, that's bride price, goes from the bridegroom to the bride herself, in effect becoming dowry. That's indirect dowry, technically, because bride price is supposed to go to her family. Yeah, and more specifically, indirect dowry. So there is a kind of transitory period. Man, we really went off the rails. I did say it was the reading stream. Was the dowry taxed as income or a gift? I think it's not abnormal for it to be taxed. That's what we saw in Greece. And we do have a source for that. Let's see. Tweet material. Where's my Greek one? So the interesting thing about that is when they abolished the dowry in Greece, What was interesting is that the dowry was taxed because it was a property transfer in the same way that inheritance is taxed today. But the dowry had half the tax rate as an actual inheritance. So it was actually like better for families to pass on property through dowry because they would have less of a tax on it. But when they got rid of the dowry, it was almost like if the family was going to give a dowry to their daughter, they have to pay a double tax on it. So the government kind of won there a little bit, which is annoying, unfortunately. Let me see if I can find that for you. And we have so many clippings, it's not even funny at this point. Newspaper. Where's my newspaper clippings too? Whoops. Okay, where's my Grease? Ah, here it is. Wow, I'm surprised I found that on stream. Crazy. I think it's this one. Oh, gosh. Oh, man, where is it? Where is the tax? It might not be this one. Originated. It may have actually been a different article. I have a bunch of articles on the transition from Greece. Under criticism. Oh, it's this one. Yeah, we did have the wrong one. Damn it. Okay. Oh, darn it. Maybe it wasn't. Sorry, guys. I'm just sitting here just lying to you guys now. Horrible. Horrible. Oh, horrible. Horrible. Oh, here it is. Here it is. One notary public said abolition of the dowry would benefit the national treasury. Although it would not stop parents from giving married children property or money in the form of a gift rather than a dowry, it automatically would double taxation on the transaction. So yeah, that's one place for that. But you're right, it was taxed. It was taxed. It was taxed. Okay, yeah, thank you for that, Tacticus. Soon you'll be yelling at the internet like Cappy. Okay, here we go. Okay. I don't even know where I left off. Traditionally, logically, and accountingly, such a proposition would require some kind of financial compensation for the legal and financial risks of committing to a modern-day Western woman. And today, young men, or any man, is well within his rights to demand such a modern-day dowry. But since most boomer and Gen X fathers have no money and are likely financially compromised through matrimony as well, demanding a dowry today is moot. And it's also further complicated because we have different taxes on us now. Like, we're taxed to pay into Social Security, right? Like, we have to collectively pay elder care. We have to collectively pay for free childcare for a certain segment of the society, right? Like, you are taxed to pay into welfare monies. That money that you're paying into taxes and stuff would have otherwise been saved as part of a dowry and things like that, or your own elder care. You know, most people still save for their elder care through retirement funds and things like that. But these are changes in the society that might act as, you know, further challenges in order to, you know, make this, to bring it back. You know, you have to consider these things. Yeah, but since most boomer and Gen X fathers have no money and are likely financially compromised through matrimony as well, demanding a dowry today is moot. No father today is going to pay a dowry. Besides, you're asking to marry his precious little princess, and nothing's too good for daddy's little princess. Thus, demanding such a dowry is going to be a non-starter. This leaves us at an impasse. Most men simply cannot afford to take on that risk, and even with the dowry, the non-financial risks are just as costly and daunting as the financial ones. Yes, at the same time, men are biologically programmed, nay, compelled to want to get married and have kids. And so what is likely going to happen is what's been happening for quite some time now. Men are balking, walking away, you could say. They're going to punt. The other man says, sorry, I missed the dowry was taxed. Yeah, there was it's like any wealth transference. So just like it's like there was an inheritance tax on it. It was, in Greece at least, less than other kinds, than the other kind of inheritance. The increase in cohabitation and the abandonment of marriage is a sign of men waking up and eschewing the legal and financial risks marriage presents to them. Simply put, simply punting on marriage and family formation, postponing them until men have their personal finances together is another consequence of this. That's really the biggest tragedy, is that when people do finally get married, like, they're a lot older. So that really hurts the fertility rate. Abortion hasn't helped either. Men abandoning it altogether and women opting to start their own family through IVF is a third. These are your single mothers by choice. Raymond did a good video on that. And such marriage avoidant behavior will continue as the internet educates men about the unacceptable legal and financial risks marriage presents to them. Or frankly, they just saw their dad get butchered in divorce court. And so what we've seen this past 20 years, certainly the past 10, will continue. It's interesting reading an article, too, from like 6 years ago and then kind of seeing how things are going. With no theoretical dowries and marriage being such a bad deal, more and more men will simply leave the marriage market because they can't afford it. What relationships show promise will end up in cohabitation, but nothing as traditional as till death do us part, most again ending after a few years. Young men who typically have precarious finances themselves will choose Maslow's hierarchy of needs of food, clothing, and shelter to survive rather than risk their ability to feed themselves on a family that has a 50% chance of ending in divorce. And there is seemingly no signs of the training women receive to not need a man abating. Women are currently and will be further programmed to never rely on a man, viewing them once again as adversaries, making them less feminine overall and therefore less desirable to men. What I don't think most people realize about marriage, particularly women, is that the price of marriage has been so skewed, so inflated these past couple generations, it's more costly than men's biological hardwiring is strong. That's an interesting sentence there. And whereas you may think you have a monopoly on this product of marriage, family, love, the empirical data is showing men are punting. Nudie videos, neatdom, lack of exercise, video games, the decrease in marriage, or just confirmed bachelors. Men are indeed leaving the traditional marriage market. It's not what they want to do, but what they're forced to do. Unfortunately, for any trade to happen in economics, both parties need to be better off after the transaction. You need to consider whether the price you're demanding can be willingly afforded or afforded at all by the counterparty. And given all the risks associated with marriage, as well as the financial, psychological, emotional, even political risks women are bringing to the table these days, it's doubtful even dowries will convince men to return to the bargaining table. So that's a fun one. Shout out to Aaron Clary. Did not expect to react to Aaron Clary stuff today, but that's some fun stuff. Let's see some of the comments. Quite interesting, makes a bit of sense. Dowry is a nice concept. Can you imagine the discussion with the future father-in-law? Sir, your daughter is $120K in student debt, according to her D&B.
I have no dowry. If anything, I have a negative dowry.
How do you intend to pay that off? Blank stare. I am also requesting $1 million divorce indemnity policy in my name. More blank stare. 1,000 shares of weight loss in case she gets fat. 20K for the professional when she refuses frisky business. Oh my God. Father-in-law. Yeah. I chat with a couple of women from foreign countries. There are no feminist movements going on there, and they are tough as nails and fiercely independent. One rumble I've heard is that kids who are attending school from home are exposing parents to BS propaganda that teachers are trying to indoctrinate the young with. If even 10% of families break away from the Wilsonian Prussian indoctrination complex, that should dramatically increase the number of women prepared to be good partners in the corporate structure of a household. I'll admit, a dowry would take a load off my mind as long as a wifey poo doesn't demand that I share it afterwards. I think the dowry that the bride's father pays is in some Asian cultures because in the Muslim religion, the woman wins the dowry. It is proof that the groom issues that he can support the bride for the family and Muslims are more than $1 billion. The woman wears white because it matches the kitchen. This is actually incorrect. They use the word dowry, but that's wrong. What you can say is more formally a dower. You could call it indirect dowry. So it's a little different than that, but let's see. The tribe has no use for dowry, and as a result, it sure ain't going to happen anytime soon. What about bride price or bride wealth? This goes into the labor argument. Bride price makes sense where women bring income into the home. If women don't make the cut personality-wise, then they get left on the shelf. Anyways, yeah, fun stuff there. That's a little walk down memory lane. I'm gonna freaking save this one. I'm gonna save this because I feel like every time I want to refer to this, I can't find it. Let me just do that real quick. Compose. And then we're gonna read a chapter from this book here that I bought that's signed from the author that I found on eBay. And then Aaron Clary dowry article. Cappy. If I just put that there, then I should be able to find it. All right, right on. Let me just catch up with chat real quick, and then we'll look at that. You can see how the government benefits from useless college degrees, student loans, and double taxes. Yeah, you're right. I mean, and listen, there's interest on student loans too, right? So who's gaining the interest from all that? Yeah. Just skipping through some of this. I don't believe father-in-laws today would get behind dowries, to be honest. Sad state of affairs. Yeah, I mean, it would have to start young. You know, maybe some would. It depends. I think it depends. If you're the father-in-law and your wife divorced you and kicked you out of your child's life, you know, when the kid was 6, it's probably going to be a pretty tall order. I will say that, yeah. In general, men can either have a wife or maybe kids, but unlikely, not both. Okay. All right, let me just move some of this stuff. That was a fun video there from Aaron Clary. Okay, how we doing? 11 folks, 15 likes. Thanks everybody for the likes. I appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all liking the video, especially on this kind of random stream. This would probably be what it was like if I didn't have an 8 to 5 and I was just an everyday streamer. And all I did was stream. God, I actually don't know if I'd be able to do that, man. That would be a tough way to live. I mean, I guess it's not tough, but it's like, damn, I mean, I think you can probably get streamer burnout pretty easily. Anyways, I found this book and I thought it was pretty interesting. It's called Richer Than Spices. And I got it for $20. And it says how a royal bride's dowry introduced cane, lacquer, cotton's tea, and porcelain to England, and so revolutionized taste, manners, craftsmanship, and history in both England and America. And, you know, that was an accident. But this is discussing a Portuguese princess, Catherine of Braganza, who married Charles II. And part of the dowry, aside from like 500,000 pounds in cash, was some different trade routes. Is it a Kama Sutra book? It's not a Kama Sutra book, but maybe through some of these trade routes, because it does involve Bombay. Possibly the Kama Sutra as a book was actually relayed to Europe through it. Very possible. Definitely possible. Anyways, so all the things that came from this dowry kind of revolutionized European culture, especially the English and the US, like tea, you know, porcelain, some of these other things, cotton. So fun stuff there. A lot of it's about that and how every piece of furniture tells a story. But we're just going to read a little bit about the dowry. I kind of wish I was sitting on my, I don't even think this, I was kind of wish I was sitting on my couch, but then it's just like, I'd have to have this other camera set up and, you know, we didn't plan for that. So I don't know, maybe this might be the best view. Robert here coming in with the facts, actually. Government rule makes $0 from student loans. Profit goes to the banks. Okay, that's good to know. If a person dies or goes 100% disabled, the government pays the student loan. Oh, wow. Okay. Gosh, that's crazy. That's interesting. Probably the fact that like banks can subsidize student loans to the government makes them less likely to want to give out a student loan maybe privately. I don't know. That's interesting right there. They need to have more scrutiny on student loans. The government guarantees the loan. It doesn't make any money from it. Sorry, couldn't let that pass. No, I appreciate that, Robert Man. Shout out to you. That is a contribution we need to help us understand. So thank you, man. And I know you know your stuff, man, especially when it comes to like IRS and taxes and all these kinds of things. I found your doppelganger in a short called I Was Amazed. Okay, really? Are you with... the hell with it. I'm too lazy to look it up. Okay. I was amazed how dumb Indians are. Yeah. I don't know if I like that comment, Mike. I don't know if I like that. Mr. Pitt, watch that guy. If you got to get rid of him, please do so. Okay. I feel like I've seen you before, though. So, if you're one of the guys, then it's all right. Okay. So, hey, real quick, before we get started, I thought this picture was pretty cool. You guys ever watch Robin Williams' Peter Pan or Captain Hook? Bad title, but your look like. Copy that. Roger that. Shout out to you, Mike. Doesn't this guy look like Captain Hook? Okay. All right. Let's get to some reading. Now, the reason I want to read this to you guys is because Charles II was so broke, and he basically needed this dowry to like keep his kingdom going. And it's like kind of embarrassing. And you know, there's always this talk about how like, you know, a king can make a woman a queen, but a queen doesn't make a man a king. Honestly, in this case, the queen's dowry, the queen's dowry was instrumental in saving like this person's kingship, pretty much, right? So this guy would have probably like lost his kingdom if this woman's dowry didn't come when it was. So, you know, fun stuff there. Yeah, and Mike Chasmart, he doesn't need to be blocked or anything. He clarified his stuff, so we're all good with Mike. Okay. All right, let's check this out. Damn, I'm trying to think. What's a more intimate setting here? The hell with it. Let's go with this view. And it's funny because they have a definition of dowry in here too. It says dowry, that which a wife bringeth her husband in marriage. Samuel Johnson. From the seclusion of her cabin, the Infanta of Portugal listened to music made for her entertainment and dreamed the dreams of a young girl on the way to her wedding. Since her childhood, Catherine of Braganza had hoped someday to marry Charles Stuart. Now that he was King of England, she could hardly believe that her sheltered girlhood was behind her, that at last she was sailing into her future as his queen. It was not love, nor was it beauty that had placed her in this position. It was politics, and it was money. Catherine's mother had baited the matrimonial hook well with the dowry of 500,000 pounds. I don't know if pounds is what they were going with, but that looks like a pound sign. Could have been ducats or something. Ducats. In promised cash, free trading rights for English ships in Brazil and the Portuguese East Indies, with also Tangiers and Bombay to be ceded to England. Okay, fun stuff. Hey, Anya Shocks in here. Welcome in, Anya. Fantastic conversation with Paul Elam, by the way. We really appreciated that. I like what you're doing on that channel. Please enjoy the reading. Please enjoy. Okay, so let's move in. Tangiers and Bombay, however, were but indistinct specks on an Englishman's map. Free trading rights in Brazil and the East Indies held vague future promise to harassed English shipping. But it was the immediacy of cash in her dowry that promised the promised £500,000 English pounds that tipped the matrimonial scales in Catherine's favor. So there was probably a lot of women that were trying to get this queen seat right here. And mom was like, okay, hold on a second. I got something for you. And she got her daughter in there. So good for mom. Shout out to mom over here. Thank you, mom. When in 1660, Charles II came to the throne of England, man, I haven't freaking read I read classic books, but, you know, streaming with the book, dang. I almost got myself a paper cut with that. Wow. When in 1660 Charles II came to the throne of England, 11 years of Cromwell's puritanical Commonwealth had left a devastated, cheerless land. Everything tainted with royal pretensions had disappeared for political reasons, and religious fanaticism had discouraged or destroyed all that savored of luxury or of personal indulgence. Palaces and castles stood cold and naked, stripped of their elegance and beauty. The churches spared destruction were but skeletons of their former grandeur. The treasury existed in name alone. All wealth had fled the country. This was the England to which Charles returned, with neither private means nor public funds at his command. Now, if a bunch of red pillars were there, they were going to be like, what? It's not masculine to take no money from a woman. Charles II just needs to self-improve. You know, he needs to just go out there and start working out and putting, you know, little baby calves on his shoulder and walking around the village, you know, until he's really buff. That's what they would have told him to do. From Breda in Holland, where he had kept the semblance of a court in exile, Charles II to The Hague to receive, or excuse me, I can't read today. From Breda in Holland, where he had kept the semblance of a court in exile, Charles traveled to The Hague to receive, in ill-disguised poverty, the delegation of Englishmen that had come to take him home. Samuel Pepys was shocked to find in what a sad, poor condition for clothes and money the king was. Man, so he was down bad. That's sad. And all his attendants. Damn, even the entourage doesn't even have nice clothes. Their clothes not being worth 40 shillings, the best of them. This is a quote from this guy. According to Pepys, the new king of England was so joyful at sight of the ready cash they had brought him that he called the Princess Royal and Duke of York to look upon it as it lay in the portmanteau before it was taken out. Never had Charles seen so much money. For years, only the promise of seldom paid pensions had held his body and soul together. Yeah, Mr. Pitt's right. He needed to run some dread game. Exactly. That's what he needed to do. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you for that, Anna. I appreciate that. Oh, my God. Yeah, he needed to run some dread game. Yeah, he needed a money max. What he needed to do was open up a bunch of brothels, you know, a la strip clubs, basically, or webcam. He needed to get a bunch of webcam models and put them in there. You know what I'm saying? He needed to sit behind the keyboard and start talking to the guys and get them to open their wallets. What he should have did. The king and all the king's men were broke. Exactly. All right, moving in. His was a gallant soul, a handsome body. Sounds pretty masculine to me. And ever since his teens, he had wandered penniless with his mother from one European court to another. First as Prince of Wales, then as uncrowned King of England, Charles Stuart was considered a poor matrimonial risk from every angle except that of personal attractiveness. He had no money, no kingdom, and no prospects of acquiring either. La Grande Mademoiselle, first cousin of Louis XIV, would have none of him. Damn, so the French, like, the most, like, basically available royal bride of the French were like, man, I ain't marrying this guy. What a loser. I wonder what her dowry was. Neither would the royal princess of Orange. Man, even the royal princess of Orange didn't want nothing to do with them. That sucks. As to the various German princesses, he brushed them off with odd fish. They are all dull and foggy. Man, this guy was broke and he still didn't want to marry a German princess. That's harsh. With Charles actually seated on the throne of England, political arrangers and royal matchmakers carefully surveyed the narrow circle of suitable eligibles for the most advantageous connection. One of those that had spurned him in his leaner days, Charles now would hear nothing. Oh, so she didn't want him. Well, she didn't want him back when he had nothing, but nowadays she's just like, can I be queen? There was one princess, however, whom he had never seen in his shabby wanderings, one who had been carefully duenna-shielded from the intrigues of the world. She was Catherine, daughter of the 8th Duke of Braganza, recently crowned John IV of Portugal. As Infanta of Portugal, Catherine of Braganza had quite the largest dowry in all of Europe. That's pretty good. Charles was of that breed of men to whom a pretty face was all important. Carefully he studied the large, soft eyes and the shy face in the miniature sent him for approval. Hopefully, he remarked, that person cannot be unhandsome. At that point, no one bothered to tell him she spoke not a word of English. Catherine, for her part, had certainly heard about the new King of England. When she was 6, her father had tried in vain to arrange a betrothal with Charles, the then 11-year-old heir apparent. After that plan had failed, the long years of her girlhood marked time, but slowly within the tapestry hung chambers of the royal palace in Lisbon, where she was constantly surrounded by disciplinary protective duennas, with never a man in sight except an occasional relative. She hath hardly been 10 times out of the palace in her life, wrote the British consul at Lisbon in 1660, and added, in 5 years' time, this is like Old English, so it gets hard to read. In 5 years' time, she was not out of doors, but over embroidery canvas or painting easel. Her mind was free to dream of the man she still hoped someday to marry. Now, they're making this sound like a fantasy novel. When nuptial negotiations with Charles were again revived, Catherine was just past 21. But little did she care if indeed she even knew of the arrangements, that it was her fabulous dowry which had tipped the scales of international connivance in her favor. All that the council could report at the time was that she is as sweet a dispositioned princess as ever was born, and a lady of excellent parts, in bred hugely retired. Okay. All right. But when she heard of this Matisse, I don't even know what intentions to make her queen. But when she heard of his Matisse intentions to make her queen of England, she hath been to visit 2 saints in the city, and very shortly she intends to pay her devotions to some saints in the country. Now, a full year later, in the spring of 1662, her tiny bridal fleet was floating down the Tagus to the sea, escorting Catherine aboard that same Royal Charles, which had carried her prince from Holland to his English throne. Even as she pondered on her future, her most prophetic thoughts, we got a picture of her. Her most prophetic thoughts could never have foreseen the exciting changes the assorted cultures of her dowry would bring to England. One in her retinue, though, sensed the world-shaking consequences and in figurative verse spelled them out for posterity. Speaking of Catherine, he wrote, the Royal Charles in her has shipped in more than all the Lisbon carracks did before Lisbon. But Indies in a trice, where'er she comes, she outbalances all wealth, perfumes, and gums. Tagus does float at Thames, and now Whitehall has found capacity for Portugal. London has swallowed Lisbon. England's coast hath gained more from us than our conquest boast. And this is a picture for her. So it's like being in class, you know what I'm saying? And someone's reading. Okay. For Catherine was a product of Portugal, the crossroads of the world, to whose shores generations of exploring traders had carried the luxuries of the East. Because of Catherine, the results of their daring would be gathered and refined by generations of Englishmen, then scattered again at a profit throughout the expanding world. Catherine's countrymen were well entitled to the first fruits of exploration, for they had methodically and as scientifically as the times allowed charted their courses to prove actual the alluring legends circulated about the lands and men. Even before the Mohammedan Turks captured Constantinople in 1453 and closed it to the Christian trade, the Portuguese had searched for a sea route to those lands of which Marco Polo had written 150 years before. All through the 15th and even later, sea pilots, mariners, and seagoing merchants based their navigational calculations on his description of the world as he had found it, 85 manuscript copies of which are still preserved in museums and libraries today. Man, isn't it crazy how we take for granted how, like, everything's mapped out now? Imagine going on a trip and, like, having to explore new area. You know, it's unmapped. There's no GPS. You don't know what you're going to confront. It's kind of like that game Age of Empires where it's all black until you go there. Then you can see the map. So as the gates slam shut on the overland route from the east, Prince Henry of Portugal, together with the best nautical minds of his country, studied Marco Polo's book and those handy maps on sailing called Portolani, and redoubled their efforts to find a water route to those centers of trade the caravans had tapped, the incredible places Marco Polo had seen. For 20-odd years, Marco Polo had zigzagged his way eastward across Asia, supposedly even through the indefinite dominions of Prester John, then had wandered across Cathay and beyond on missions for the great Kublai Khan, to whose brilliant court he was attached as a counselor. On his return to Venice in 1295, Marco Polo told all who would listen of cotton in India that grew 6 yards tall, of a city in China where all people dressed in silk, yet still had plenty to spare for foreign merchants, and of fortunes to be had in Java in pepper, nutmeg, spikenard, galangal, I haven't even heard of some of these spices, cubebs, cloves, and all the other valuable spices and drugs. But his tales only earned for him the sobriquet Marco de Milioni, Marco of the Millions, among his neighbors, for they thought he exaggerated 1,000,000 times. To this day, at carnival time in Venice, he is still caricatured by the tattered clowns in their exaggerated gestures. As fantastic as formerly were thought his tales, yet he had seen it all and more with the appraising eyes of a Venetian merchant through whose hands had passed the rich east-west commerce of the medieval world. These were the riches Prince Henry of Portugal sought for his country, as the third surviving son of John I of Portugal and of Philippa, daughter of England's John of Gaunt. He must have been very gaunt. He was comparatively free to indulge his own pursuits without much concern for royal succession. After distinguishing himself as a soldier, he turned to the sea in exploring, which earned him the byname of the Navigator. That's a pretty cool nickname. For the rest of his life, he lived with dedication at the naval arsenal at Sagra, near Cape St. Vincent, from where he could watch the Atlantic Ocean lash the southernmost tip of Portugal in planned and charted ways of how to reach the lands beyond. Within his fortress castle, he gathered about him the best nautical minds of the day, astronomers, navigators, cartographers, and eminent Arabic and Jewish mathematicians, who schooled pilots and sea captains in map and instrument making and in the newest methods of navigation. From there, at Sagres, he sent one lateen-rigged caravel, after another sailing south along the west coast of Africa to find the treasures of the East. The first to round the point known as the Cape of Storms was helplessly blown there by 13 consecutive days of savage winds and sea. All that followed in return brought back rumors of the priest-king Prester John, and tales of men turned black by a searing sun. In Prince Henry's lifetime, though, none found the sea route to Cathay, nor to Java and the aromatic Isles of Spice. But all now knew the tip of Africa as the Cape of Good Hope. Rumors of him who styled himself Presbyter Joan, by the power and virtue of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, Lord of Lords, had circulated through the Western world since the closing years of the 12th century. The indeterminate boundaries of his powerful empire of 72 tribute-paying kingdoms extended, in his own words, over the 3 Indies. There are still extant today almost 100 manuscript copies of Prester John's extraordinary letter introducing himself to the world. 8 are in the British Museum. Hope you're enjoying this, guys. I'm enjoying reading. Still 14 of you here, so shout out to y'all. For centuries, no dignitary of the Renaissance world could well afford not to pay homage to this august personage, when even distantly approaching his sophistical domain. In fact, Christopher Columbus, as emissary of Ferdinand and Isabella, carried with him as he sailed into the setting sun greetings and increase of good fortune addressed to the most serene prince, and then it's left blank. The blank to be completed with the name of the first worthy encountered, be he Kublai Khan or Prester John. Kublai Khan, who had added South China to Cathay and had founded the Mongol dynasty, had been dead 200 years when Columbus discovered America, and according to Marco Polo, Prester John had been personally killed by Kublai's father, Genghis Khan, that's Genghis Khan, in the 12th century. Even so, the search for the elusive Prester John and his incredible empire continued to intrigue the imaginations of generations of adventurers. All through the 15th century, ruling princes still addressed themselves to Prester John of the Indies. But some directed their epistles to that Christian potentate now rumored to reside somewhere in Africa, perhaps Abyssinia. So persistent were these reports that King Manuel I of Portugal commissioned Vasco da Gama to search there for Prester John. In 1497, 4 specially built vessels sailed for Africa and safely rounded the Cape, as Henry the Navigator had believed they could. In port after port up the east coast, they looked for the Royal Will-o'-the-Wisp. When they failed to find Prester John, the four little ships struck out across the Indian Ocean into the secret reaches of the Arab trade routes. In the opinion of Vasco da Gama, any infidel territory was legitimate loot for a believer. In fact, the Pope, Alexander VI, had in 1494 divided the newly to-be discovered lands of the world between Portugal and Spain. The line of demarcation was drawn north to south through the Atlantic Ocean, 370 leagues west of the Portuguese Cape Verde Islands. Spain to have claim to all lands found west of the arbitrary line, and Portugal to all lands discovered to the east. So it was that Spain explored both the Americas, except for that part of Brazil that happened to lie east of the specified meridian. Doesn't sound like a great deal for Portugal. And so it was, among other reasons, that Vasco da Gama found himself before Calicut on the west coast of India, which at that time was the threshold to all the inland wealth of Asia. Vasco da Gama's reception at Calicut was far, I think that might be modern day Calcutta, but I got to look into that. Vasco da Gama's reception at Calicut was far from cordial. May the devil take you, what brought you hither? Or the Arabic equivalent were reputedly the first words to greet him. For the taking of Calicut by Vasco da Gama was the beginning of the vast Eastern Empire that made the King of Portugal lord of the conquest, navigation, and commerce of India, Ethiopia, Arabia, and Persia, as confirmed by Pope Alexander VI in 1502. After Calicut, every strategic spot on the Malabar coast of India was claimed by Portugal, and Goa on the Arabian Sea as the seat of administration. Then on the Malay Peninsula, the Portuguese established a station at Malacca and eventually claimed the whole Malay archipelago for themselves. For one swashbuckling century, they bribed, threatened, bargained, fought, and converted without much opposition until their empire included such strategic spots as Ceylon, Sumatra, and the Spice Islands, now called the Moluccas. At Canton, though, that same approach only delayed their trade with China. As early as 1517, a Portuguese carrack had tacked its way 80 miles up the Pearl River, between thousands of outlandish trading junks, to the very edge of the busy waterfront spread below the city walls of Canton. Imperiously, the Portuguese announced their arrival with a deafening salvo of cannons. No amount of later protestations could convince the indignant Chinese that the salute had been anything less than a threat. After 40 years of wrangling and surreptitious trade, even then ostensibly only as a reward for having cleared plundering pirates out of the surrounding waters, the Portuguese were allowed to settle on the little rocky point of Macau that juts out into the Pearl River where it joins the China Sea. Because piracy continued, Chinese junks were forbidden to sail beyond their own coastal waters, and the Portuguese subsequently handed all Chinese foreign shipping with profit to themselves. Don't worry, folks, we got about 2 more pages. As for Japan, it was a storm in 1542 that blew the Portuguese there. After almost a century of trade, Portuguese Jesuit missionaries were accused of meddling in Japanese politics, and, in consequence, all Portuguese nationals were summarily evicted from the islands in 1638. Not another Portuguese ship could touch Japan on penalty of being burned with all her cargo and every human executed. The terminating message, think no more of us, just as if we were no longer in the world, closed forever to Portugal, the rich trade of Japan. In spite of these misadventures, the exotic wealth of the East that was gathered from the widely scattered shores of Asia continued to pour into the ports of Portugal. Instead of trading in Venice or Genoa, the merchants of Europe now traveled to Lisbon for gumlac, indigo, and myrrh, cinnamon, mace, ginger, pepper, and cloves, for precious gems and parcels of pearls, for raw and wrought China silks, for cotton goods called baftas, broderas, cachets, dorbellas, and many more whose names have long since been forgotten. By 1662, when Catherine of Braganza sailed to her Charles in England, the little kingdom of Portugal was still able to gild its princess with the richest dowry in Europe, despite 60 years of subservience to Spain, the ever-increasing competition of the aggressive Dutch, and the sporadic trading efforts of the struggling English East India Company. To Charles, to his impoverished court, and to England, Catherine's dowry was only as rich as the number of money pieces mentioned, for those were almost double to what any king had ever received in money by any marriage. As for the rest of the dowry, it was condemned by ignorance. Free trading rights for English shipping in the ports of Brazil and the Portuguese East Indies were suspected of being but a grandiose gesture without value. The ceding of Tangiers' African counterpart to Gibraltar made little impression on an England too poor to maintain it. As for Bombay, included to assure the Portuguese an ally in the East against the openly hostile Dutch, it was contemptuously called a pestilential swamp. Man, Bombay taking hits right here. By contemporary English chroniclers, hardly an asset. However, the Portuguese ambassador at the court of St. James had glowingly pictured the island of Bombay as sprinkled with towns and studded with castles, overlooking spacious bays, and had contended its possession would be a vast improvement to the East India trade and might reasonably be valued above the portion in money. Not even in their most exaggerated enthusiasm could the Portuguese perceive how literally true their optimism would prove. But in the spring of 1662, England was more in need of ready money than of a rosy future. For that pecuniary reason, Catherine's departure from Portugal met several delays. While the English were forced to have some clashing about payment of the portion before they could get it, even then, there was but little actual cash, for Catherine's mother had borrowed heavily against the dowry to finance Portuguese resistance to Spain. Pushed to fulfill her promise to England, the Queen of Portugal substituted her jewels and plate, filled the holds of the bridal fleet with sugar, and added bills of exchange to round out a doubtful half of Catherine's portion of 500,000 pounds. As for the rest, Portugal agreed to pay the other moiety within the space of a year. It's not so bad, 1 year. Of the little money Catherine did bring with her, Samuel Pepys stored 3 chests of Portuguese cruzados overnight in his cellar, and made the maids to rise and light a candle, and set it in the dining room to scare away thieves. 2 days later, he watched some thousands of cruzados weighed and find that 3,000 comes to about 530 pounds, or 40 generally. Okay, 2 more paragraphs. No thought of money, however, crossed the mind of Charles as he rushed to greet Catherine at Portsmouth. It was the man in him, not the king, who noticed first that his wife he had never seen before had a face. Not so exact as to be called the beauty, though her eyes are excellent good, nor had she anything in her face that in the least degree can shock one. In fact, he wrote his Chancellor Edward Hyde, "She hath as much agreeableness in her looks altogether as ever I saw, and if I have any skill in physiognomy, which I think I have, she must be as good a woman as ever was born." Charles II at that moment considered himself very fortunate that the personal part of the complicated international marriage barter held for him such pleasant prospects. As ecstatically as any normal bridegroom, he blurted out, "I cannot easily tell you how happy I think myself, and I must be the worst man living, which I hope I am not, if I be not a good husband." Time and circumstances have a way of their own with prophecies, and it didn't take long for Charles to prove himself wrong, and wrong too were the political pessimists who could see no good for England in any of the Portuguese concessions of Catherine's dowry. As well for them that they could not, for nothing short of a visionary madman would have been able even to hint at the social changes Catherine's dowry would provoke before many more years were to elapse. And then, later on, England becomes a huge shipping naval powerhouse and becomes fantastically rich. Okay. Well, that was fun. Women inherit property business, but they don't know how to manage it. Watch what happened to TPUSA. It's imploding with women in charge. That's an interesting thing to think about. Yeah, I know Erica Kirk is now at the helm there. Mr. Pitt says the East India Trading Company was one of the most powerful corporations in that region's history. Very much so. Very much so. It pretty much financed, a lot of the English empire in that way. Where are we at right now? 2 hours, 15 minutes? I think that's pretty good. I should probably spend the rest of my day doing some chores and things like that. I feel like I was a little productive. We got to read some things. I think that qualifies as doing a little bit of research and not completely just wasting the day away. So how about that? You know what? I'll play one of these special songs here to kind of see us out. And thanks everybody who came randomly. It's nice to have a day off sometimes. Special blessings to Martin Luther King Jr. May he rest in peace. Where we all get to enjoy a fantastic holiday. Damn, where's my... We'll do a classic. I thought about like playing some video games or something, but it's so hard, man. I want to play games, but then it's hard for me to like sit down and do it. It sounds really crazy. But I do try to game where I can. I do try. Hope everybody else has a good rest of their weekend and goes back to work tomorrow chilling. Some of you guys got work today. I think Mailspace said he had work. Mailspace is going to have some new videos for us coming soon too, so keep an eye out for that. Raymond Thoughts and Mine has a second channel. Anya Shock was just in here. Please remember to check out her channel if you guys haven't already. Thanks for another shot. No worries, man. I kind of felt like I owed y'all another stream since I was kind of sick for the last one. That Aaron Claren video was pretty good, man. Thanks for suggesting that. I should reach out to him, man. See if him and I can have a conversation. I still need to do one with Nuke, too. As well as Base FCZ. I have a recorded conversation with Effective Purpose, and I'm still waiting for him to post it. I should probably follow up with him. If he doesn't post it, I'll ask him if he's okay with me posting it. But we had a fun discussion. His dream was simple yet profound. And then in March, I got a surprise for you guys. Gonna meet with some folks in March. So we'll hopefully get some good conversations there recording for y'all. That one's gonna be in person. Great live stream, Shaw. I love reading live streams. Thank you. I'm glad someone appreciates it, man. I'm glad someone appreciates, because it helps me get some research done. You know, I understand it may not be as entertaining, but we threw some other stuff in there. So it wasn't that bad. What I really need to do is I need to make some standalone videos. I don't know why, man. I just fell out of the rhythm of doing that. Like some of the stuff I talked about today would probably been a fine standalone. I just want dedicated standalones. Like I don't care to clip stuff I already streamed. I know that's probably better business-wise. I should do that. Just feels a little alien to me. I'll have to get those books you mentioned. Oh, well, yeah, if you find them interesting, that'd be cool. After this, I'm going to watch the video you did with Glenn. Oh, yeah. It's probably better to listen to the audio version he has posted, because the audio is an hour and 20 minutes, and the video is like 30 minutes. And then the audio one features Michael Sartain. So, I mean, just so you know, it's interesting. King Louis XIV leading to the War of Devolution, where he used the unpaid dowry of his wife. Ooh, that's interesting. I'll have to read up on that. Probably to finance the war. That sounds interesting, though. I'll have to get those books you mentioned. Thank you, Elena. Shah, I think because your content's so niche, you could become pretty prominent in the broader conversation. I like that thought, man. I think so. It definitely presents a different angle. I think the biggest challenge is finding a way to make it real to people and make it feel relevant for the present, you know. But that's what we've been working on. That's what we've been working on. You know, we'll do one more song while we're chatting. Looking for a kind of quieter song. Let's see. Quiet song. Gold Bill Treasure Chest. Ah, the heck with it. Curb appeal. That's the club mix. To be the reason for the war. Let me look that up real quick. I like that. Louis the 16th. Is it Louis the 14th or 16th? Oh, sorry, 14th. My apologies. Louis the 14th. War of Devolution. Let's see. I think Mr. Pitt likes this song. Upon marrying Louis XIV, 1660, as part of the Treaty of Pyrenees, Maria Theresa renounced her rights to inherit Spanish territories in exchange for a massive dowry of 500,000 gold écus. Spain, being bankrupt and weak, failed to pay this dowry. Uh-oh, we got a real feud going on now. Following the death of Philip IV of Spain in 1660. Okay, so now his assets are going into probate, and they're going to be inherited by his heirs. Louis XIV argued that because the dowry was never paid, his wife's renunciation of her inheritance rights was null and void. That makes sense, yeah. Typically, when a dowry was paid out, especially like Brazil and Portugal, there's also something that says you're renouncing any rights to inheritance. So your dowry is the inheritance. Sometimes what they can do is when the parent does pass, the daughter can put her dowry back into the estate pool, and then it would be divided equally. So they had an option to do that if they thought they were going to get more. But if they were going to get less, they can say, I want to keep my dowry, my dowry. Louis XIV used this claim to the Spanish Netherlands for his wife, invoking jus devolutionis. Okay, devolution of property. Which stipulated that children from a first marriage inherit before children of a later marriage. Interesting. Based on this, French forces invaded the Spanish Netherlands in May, leading to a quick victory in the annexation of several but not all claimed territories by the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle in 1668. That's a fun history there. Other than lead attorney and Jonathan Noble, I don't know any non-lawyers who look at child support, dowries, and all that. Yeah, I guess you could say it is very niche. It is very niche.
Well, dowry, it's my right.
This is the song that Mr. Pitt likes. I should have played this one. All right. Yeah, man, I told myself for like New Year's, like as a resolution, I want to put more time into the channel. Either I need to stream more, or I need to make more videos. I should probably make more videos because that's the one that like feels more challenging to me, I guess. So I'll probably do that. It's a good song, man. Thanks, Mel Space, for the super chat again. Appreciate that. Yeah, I'm still thinking about, I kind of treat the channel very casually. It really is kind of like a garage band style thing, or a place to have fun that isn't my real work, Part of me wants to take YouTube more seriously, develop it into something. Sometimes I think about doing things like panel shows, not like just where people can call in and we can chat about stuff, like through Zoom or something. Maybe I can have a bunch of people call in and tell me I'm crazy. You do a video on the Trump Greenland thing. I saved a bunch of tweets because I wanted to, but I never made the video. So I should do a video on that. You should do. Yeah, I should do a video on that. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. And just kind of discuss the practicality of it or some of the history of it. That'd be a good 10-minute talk. Man, this song goes hard right here. Appreciate the great chill stream. Thank you, Tacticus, man. I appreciate that too. I appreciate you guys hanging out. We had fun. All right. All right, guys. Well, I better go outside. I got some groceries to do. I got some laundry to do, and be ready for tomorrow for work. And then hopefully I can sit down and get some gaming in. So shout out to everybody. We'll see you on the next one.